Good evening. We are here for our fire department and also to hear from the Office of Emergency Management as well. And we're going to get right into the presentations. Whenever you guys are ready, who's ever providing a presentation, if you could do so from the lectern. Thank you.
Ma'am, do you want to start with OEM first, or? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Mr. President, and other honorable members of council. My name is Joey Henderson. I am the Director of the Office of Emergency Management. I am representing Service 608, which is Emergency Management, and we are requesting funding of $2,760,556. In FY25, the Baltimore City Office of Emergency Management took major strides in citywide emergency preparedness, response, and community engagement. Our emergency operations plan received official approval from Mayor Scott, marking a critical step in enhancing the city's readiness and coordination efforts. OEM also took an active role in planning, facilitating, and participating in various workshops and exercises, including the Mayor's Interfaith Symposium, the Severe Storm Tabletop Exercise, the Winter Preparedness Tabletop Exercise, the BCFD Cybersecurity Exercise, the Artscape Exercise, and the Extreme Heat Tabletop Exercise, just to name a few. These events were vital in strengthening cross-sector collaboration and ensuring a whole community approach to emergency management. We have also re-engaged our community emergency response team program with over 90 new certifications completed this fiscal year. OEM has also led in incident command system training for city staff to support overall readiness. Our outreach efforts were equally robust. We expanded our engagement with our population through participating in National Night Out events citywide. During the National Preparedness Month, which is in September, OEM attended over 60 events, 2 events per every city council district, with our flagship initiative being the Emergency Preparedness Summit in the Brooklyn Homes Community Center. Most recently, OEM has held its first workshop focused on access and functional needs, focusing on fostering a more equitable and accessible approach to preparedness. Beyond training and outreach, OEM maintains a strong operational presence. In FY25, we supported responses to major incidents, including the Artscape storm response of last year, the Camp Smalls fire, the North Charles Street underground fires, the citywide snow operations, the citywide internet outage, the 7-alarm fire recently on Edmondson Avenue, the May Day protests, and most recently, the EF1 tornado that impacted the Canton area and Dundalk in Baltimore County. For an operational standpoint, the Emergency Operations Center was activated 25 times for incidents, city events, and holidays. This collaborative efforts were essential to maintaining situational awareness and protecting the lives of residents, visitors, and those who work and live and engage with Baltimore. OEM is also responsible for emergency planning and crisis communication. We are actively coordinating with city agencies to complete and maintain their continuity of operations plans, continuously reviewing our EOP for updates and engaging with DHCD and BCFD to ensure our emergency shelter plans are inclusive of people with pets. We continue to promote, OEM utilizes the Be More Alert system by Everbridge as the city's mass notification system. We continuously promote system registration during community outreach events and have increased our social media messaging with partners and with other agencies to increase public awareness. Currently, we are working with partnering agencies to develop methods so they can reach their staff with emergency preparedness and response messages. We continue to maintain and spend down on federal grant funds from FEMA, which is used to fund 8 positions within OEM. Currently, we are awaiting the notice of the FY25 FEMA Homeland Security grants. With the federal discussions of restructuring or dismantling of FEMA, we anticipate there will be impacts to those grants. In conclusion, Now more than ever, strong local emergency management is essential. With the potential for the reduction in FEMA funding and the continuous rise in emergency incidents, it is critical that we ensure sustainment budgetary support for OEM. This will enable us to continue serving the city of Baltimore through prevention, preparedness, response, and recovery and mitigation efforts to protect the lives and build a more resilient city. And I'm open for any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for OEM? Councilmember Ramos.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Director, thank you very much for all that you're doing. You're everywhere, it seems, and your team, so I appreciate that. I mean, that's the point. You had mentioned the challenges with the federal level, and your budget is literally half federal funds. So what, have you put in contingencies in place? What is the thinking around the next steps? And if you had to give up those funds and the funds don't come in, what is your operational plan, or are we having discussions with the mayor's office about backfilling?
We have started the discussions with the mayor's office. The moment that the federal administration put a halt to funding being reimbursed, that was since reversed. However, we are waiting for FY2025's funds to come out. Those funds should have been out over a month ago. So we are anticipating that there may be some level of funding cuts. So we are working with the administration. Ultimately, if we do lose that funding, I will have to cut my staff. And as I stated in my opening remarks, that is 8 positions within my office. However, I do have, right now, I do have positions that are unfilled that are under general funds that I can use to try to maintain some of my staff that is on grant funding. But I will have to look to get funding on the general fund in order to maintain staffing.
How many of those positions are unfilled right now?
So I have 4 unfilled, but I am combined, so 4 of those positions, excuse me, are GSS 2 positions. And in the field of emergency management, I just cannot get qualified candidates with that salary range. So I'm working with HR to combine those positions to make 2 GSS 3 positions that'll make it more attractable, and I can get a more qualified candidates.
Right, it seems like that's one of the themes is the agencies are starting to combine positions to try to fill those vacancies. But it would be extremely unfortunate to lose that funding and not be able to keep the really good team that you have. So I'm hopeful, I don't know if the mayor's office wants to comment on what some of the, and this will be a theme through the rest of the budget hearings, because we have several agencies that are over 50% grant funded.
Yeah, this is something that we're paying attention to. We obviously don't want to lose positions in OEM, so we're going to continue to monitor this and make sure that we can support this team.
Okay, thanks. And I'm sure we'll have more specifics probably after the budget hearings, and as we know more. Do we know when we'll hear about FEMA?
We do not, ma'am. The state actually thought that the notice of interest would have been out on the 15th of this month. The 15th came and gone. So at this point, we're unsure. The leadership at FEMA has been a rotating door. So we are at the mercy of whenever they put it out. The only thing we know is it is going to be an extremely quick turnaround. So literally, they're going to put out information, and we'll have about a week to respond.
Mm-hmm. Well, you've got a good team that knows how to put these things together, so you'll be able to respond, and hopefully that will come out. So I look forward to talking more about this. Thanks, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilmember Ramos. Just as a reminder for any of the agency representatives, the first time that you're speaking, just give your first and last name and also just your position. Thank you. Councilmember Gray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. How are you today? Good.
I'm good, sir.
Great seeing you this weekend at our escape. And your head was on a swivel and you were definitely doing your job. And I definitely appreciate the work that you did this weekend to keep everyone safe. I know personally we've done canvases with you guys, also with Chief Wallace when he was at OEM, to get our community members to sign them up for the emergency text message system, especially after the Frederick Avenue floods, the historic floods. Are these canvases still continuing throughout the city? And how are you reaching those communities that aren't so tech savvy or connected to social media?
Thank you for the question. So in terms of the canvassing, yes, we will continue to canvass. We'll canvass in the areas that we know have had flooding issues. So definitely Frederick Avenue, definitely on Hill and 35th Street. We will canvass to try to get folks to sign up. Hopefully, the majority of them have already done so. However, anytime we go out to do outreach events, we are pushing the message of getting people to sign up. Anytime we are in front of a camera, we're pushing that message to get people to sign up. My staff has actually gone to senior events and signed folks up for them, so allowed them to gather their information and sign them up themselves. So that is something that we will continually do. We will also, as we did last year, partner with other agencies to have a mass rollout of Be More Alert, because we are getting ready to get into the storm season. So, we'll do what we did last year. We'll try to get all the other sister agencies to put a banner on their website for Be More Alert that they can click on and go directly to our sign-up page.
Thank you for that. And please let us know whenever you're doing any canvases in District 8. We would just love to partner with you and make sure we spread that awareness, especially in light of, I may have seen some news that FEMA, they're no longer providing funding for municipalities or any communities as far as flood mitigations and those types of events. And so, if we're not going to be getting that federal funding, at least we can make sure that people can at least know when things are happening. And Be More Alert really helps out a lot of folks in my area. I know when I signed up for it, I continuously got notifications whenever there was a significant weather event. So I appreciate everything you guys continue to do and continue to do. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. We're going to move into the fire department's presentation. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Council President Cohen, and esteemed committee members. My name is James Wallace, and I'm the Chief of the Baltimore City Fire Department. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. It is both an honor and a responsibility that I do not take lightly as Chief of the department. I am proud to share an update on our progress, our challenges, and our continued vision for an innovative, responsive, and community-centered fire service. This past fiscal year has tested the strength, adaptability, and heart of our department like never before. Our members have courageously responded to several major incidents, including the devastating 7-alarm warehouse fire on Edmondson Avenue and the significant Camp Small fire, each of which placed extraordinary demands on our personnel, equipment, and our coordination across all agencies, but all of these events occurred without injury. These events are stark reminders of the unpredictable and often hazardous conditions that our firefighters and EMS teams face in protecting lives and property. This year, our department has embraced innovation, not as a buzzword, but as a strategic priority. Innovation for us means saving more lives, protecting more property, and being better prepared for the evolving needs of the residents we serve. From increased call volumes to changing urban landscapes, we are rethinking how we serve Baltimore with the agility, foresight, and most of all, care our residents deserve. As we present our FY2026 budget, I urge you to see these figures not merely as funding requests, but as strategic investments in safety, resilience, and equity. Baltimore's fire department is more than red trucks and sirens. It is a vital safety net, a public health partner, a frontline responder to the emergency needs of every citizen. And I might add that we are extraordinarily grateful to our mayor, Mayor Brandon Scott, for his unprecedented support and investment in our agency. From departmental-wide upgrades to our self-contained breathing apparatus and fire hose, to the transformative ARPA funding that enabled critical infrastructure improvements in aging and previously neglected fire stations and facilities. It is because of this administration's support, along with the continued backing of this council, our agency is moving forward rapidly and decisively. I look forward to working together to build a fire service that reflects the best of who we are: resilient, innovative, and deeply committed to those that we serve. So under Service 600 administration, addressing our staffing needs remains a top priority. Like many departments nationwide, we are managing workforce shortages in both fire suppression and EMS. To meet this challenge, we are actively recruiting and strengthening our ability to retain personnel. We have also made a significant focus on hiring professional civilian staff to provide that much-needed supplemental management, staffing, and support service. Our recruitment campaigns have also expanded to include more local engagement, Baltimore City school-based career pathway partnerships, including YouthWorks, and targeted outreach in underrepresented communities. We are working to ensure the next generation of firefighters and EMTs reflects the diversity, talent, and resilience of Baltimore City. For Service 602. At the core of everything we do, our mission is to respond swiftly, effectively, and compassionately. In 2024, we improved average response times across key service categories and expanded the capabilities of our specialized units, from technical rescue to hazardous materials. In addition, we are seeing a troubling rise in fires involving vacant properties, fires that put our crews in greater danger and threaten surrounding communities. To combat this challenge, we have continued to change our tactical approach to structure fires, particularly in those vacant or uninhabited codex buildings, which present unique and significant risk. This year, we've continued to make changes in how we assess, prioritize, and respond to such incidents. By enhancing pre-incident planning and integrating data from housing and code enforcement, we can now better determine whether interior attacks are necessary or if a defensive strategy is safer. These updates are already improving responder safety and resource efficiency, helping us to minimize risk without compromising service. As an example, in Q3 of this year, we saw an 83% reduction in fireground injuries as compared to Q3 this time last year. For Service 609, we continue to face a national and local shortage of EMS professionals, especially paramedics, which places additional strain on our already thin front line. Compounding this fact that many 911 calls we receive are for non-life-threatening issues, revealing systemic gaps in access to preventative and community-based care. These call patterns demand thoughtful, strategic changes, such as investment in diversion programs and mobile integrated health services, to ensure that our EMS teams can prioritize the most critical emergencies. And at the same time, we are on the front lines of an ongoing public health emergency, the opioid crisis. This continues to devastate families and neighborhoods across our city. Our EMS teams are now responding to an increasingly complex mix of calls, not only overdose, but a wide spectrum of health emergencies rooted in chronic illness, addiction, and deep-seated social inequities. In total, from July 1 of 2024 through May 1 of 2025, The department dispatched over 171,000 emergency 911 fire and EMS calls. This is an alarming indication of both the volume and intensity of the workload. In addition, we've expanded our Tele 911 program, which diverts non-life-threatening emergency medical calls to virtual consultations with EMS providers. This helps keep advanced life support units available for critical emergencies while ensuring all residents receive timely and appropriate care. In the near future, we will introduce another innovative service. Low priority, non-life-threatening 911 calls will be redirected to an on-call nurse who can provide immediate care recommendations. This initiative further demonstrates our commitment to public service through innovation and practical problem solving. We recognize that public health and public safety are deeply interconnected. That's why we've adopted the population health team approach, leveraging data on chronic health conditions by embedding our efforts with communities most affected by addiction and other complex health challenges. For Service 610, we've also deepened our commitment to public education. Thousands of Baltimoreans, children, seniors, caregivers, and everyday residents have participated in our workshops, including fire safety, hands-only CPR training, Narcan delivery training, and other neighborhood events. We are empowering our communities to become part of the safety net, not just the recipients of emergency care. Our community risk reduction team has significantly increased efforts in residential inspections, this year installing over 6,500 new smoke alarms and conducting proactive safety outreach. A key focus this year has been supporting our aging in place and vulnerable 65-plus community, ensuring that they receive the resources and protection that they need and they deserve. For Service 611, the Baltimore City Fire Department has implemented a revitalized approach within the Office of the Fire Marshal, beginning with a recent change in leadership and the hiring of additional fire inspectors to strengthen our capacity for timely inspections and code enforcement. This renewed approach is aimed at improving efficiency, accountability, and service delivery across the board. I am also proud to announce the soft launch today of our new microsite. The web address, www.bcfdfiremarshal.org. This is designed to streamline communication, enhance customer service, and provide transparent, user-friendly access to critical fire marshal resources. The site offers comprehensive information on plan reviews, including third-party plan review processes, making it easier for developers, contractors, and property owners to navigate regulatory requirements. These efforts reflect our commitment to proactive fire prevention, and we hope will lead to higher customer satisfaction rates across both commercial and residential properties citywide. Service 612 Fire Investigation. BCFD Fire Investigation has made significant enhancements in our efforts to determine fire cause origin, and cause determination, which directly support fire prevention initiatives and the prosecution of arson-related crime. Yet we unfortunately continue to encounter some limitations when investigating vacant and code X-rate dwellings, as structural instability following a fire often restricts safe access for investigators. Despite these obstacles, we've increased training opportunities and mentorship for our team, strengthening our investigative capabilities. Our continued and promised collaboration between the BCFD, BPD Arson, and the ATF remains critical. This allows us to share resources, intelligence, and expertise to drive more effective outcomes. For Service 613 Fire Facilities Maintenance, we are operating in an environment of heightened demand. Call volumes across the city continue to climb, not only in terms of frequency, but also in terms of complexity. Yet despite this, we are meeting the challenge head-on by modernizing our infrastructure, reimagining how we respond, and also re-engineering how we prepare our personnel. We've completed significant renovations at multiple fire stations across the city, modernizing the spaces where our first responders live and work. These improvements go beyond aesthetics. They are essential for meeting today's operational needs and ensuring compliance with modern health, safety, and environmental standards. In addition, and as previously reported, we've upgraded our self-contained breathing apparatus equipment to the latest standards, departmental-wide. This was a Herculean effort made possible by way of the ARPA grant awarded to the fire department by Mayor Scott and his administration. I would like to add that the last time that we purchased SCBA was in 2012, and it was on a 2007 standard. This has been a huge, huge, huge upgrade for the men and women of this fire department. On the technology front, we have fully integrated new dispatch automation systems, and we've also deployed 80 new state-of-the-art thermal imaging cameras, allowing our teams to respond with greater speed and precision. In addition, our new fleet now includes new eco-friendly response units, reducing our carbon footprint while increasing reliability on the front lines. A system that we're very proud of is Operative IQ. Operative IQ is a robust inventory and asset management system. It is used by the Baltimore City Fire Department to enhance logistical oversight and operational readiness. It offers real-time visibility into supplies and equipment, streamlining distribution, proven to reduce waste, and enabling smarter purchasing decisions. This platform also supports tracking of narcotics, facility maintenance, apparatus status, and internal service tickets, just to name a few. Leveraging RFID technology, the department has improved asset tracking inventory control, resulting in an immediate $2 million in cost savings since the system is launched. Service 614, Fire Communications and Dispatch. One of the most exciting and forward-thinking developments this year has been our modernization of the 911 system. At large-scale events and festivals where safety risks are heightened and response efforts are more complex, we are now leveraging geofencing technology and artificial intelligence in our 911 call center. These advanced tools enable us to proactively deploy resources and monitor real-time conditions with remarkable precision. It is a groundbreaking advancement for public safety at large-scale events and represents the first system of its kind in the nation. I will add, this was used last weekend at Artscape. Our service provider has indicated to our amazing 911 and communications director, Director Reddick, this is the first time this was done in the nation. We've not been able to confirm it yet, that's what we're being told, but I'm extraordinarily proud of her efforts and what was done last weekend for such a large-scale event. For Service 615, Fire Training and Education. At the Fire Academy, innovation is at the core of our training philosophy. We are committed to preparing not only Baltimore City Fire Department recruits, but also our current members through advanced, realistic training that mirrors the challenges faced in the field. By recreating high-risk emergency scenarios, we provide hands-on experience in real-time situations, ensuring our personnel are equipped to make life-saving decisions under pressure. Utilize cutting-edge simulators and the latest firefighting technologies, our training evolves continuously because in this profession, our learning never stops. This dynamic approach reinforces our mission to protect lives and property with skill, precision, and preparedness. And in looking forward, we look forward to a department built for the future. As we reflect on our progress, I want to be clear. We are not merely reacting to the challenges today. We are preparing for the realities of tomorrow. The investments we are requesting in this budget hearing are not just line items, they are lifelines. They fund the tools, the talent, and the technology that allow us to serve with the level of excellence at which we do. They support the kind of data-driven community-focused fire department that Baltimore needs and they deserve. We are building a department that is innovative, resilient, inclusive, and very forward-looking. Our commitment to progress has earned recognition, including the 2024 MACO Award for Innovation for our Tele 911 program. And we are achieving this with the input, support, and trust of our community partners, our dedicated firefighters, EMTs, 911 call takers, and dispatchers, and each of you here today. Before I close, I want to extend my deepest gratitude to the brave men and women of the Baltimore City Fire Department who serve with courage every single day. They support, and to our support staff who keep our operations moving, and to our community organizations and leaders who help us stay grounded in the people that we serve. And to this council, thank you for your continued partnership. With your support, we are innovating, protecting, responding, and educating in ways that are transforming public safety across the city of Baltimore. I'll now take any questions you have.
Thank you, Chief Wallace. I just have one question to start. What's the current number of vehicle collisions for FY25 so far?
Chief Knight. Ma'am, I'm going to defer to the safety officer for an accurate number.
Good evening, ma'am. Carl Knight, Deputy Chief of Office of Safety and Risk Management. So currently we track our collisions monthly. So as of the end of April, we are totaling, well, I'll give you the breakdown monthly. So it was 32 in July, 26 in August, 18 in September, 37 in October, 24 in November, 24 December, 32 January, 20 in February, 24 in April, and 24 in March, and 23 in April. I don't have, give me 1 second, I'll be able to total that up for you. So that totals 260 as of the end of April.
And that was from July to April, July 2024 to April?
July of 2024 through the end of April of this year, yes,
I
ma'am.
appreciate you. We're going to go to Council President Cohen for the next question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chief, I want to begin by just acknowledging the loss of Lieutenant Dranbauer and EVD Mudra from the force, and just to acknowledge the enormous loss that this department has experienced over the past couple of years. Was at one of the funerals this weekend, and I know that folks who sign up to work in the department expect to be able to go home at night and love their families. And we've lost a lot of firefighters over these past couple of years. And so just want to send a thank you to our entire department for your service. And Chief, I want to acknowledge you, especially as someone who truly leads by example. Since you became chief, since you came from OEM, I've seen you show up at the Key Bridge collapse. I've seen you show up at a truly horrific fire in my district where some children were hurt and ultimately died. I've seen you show up at several of the major fires that you mentioned, and I just appreciate that in a leader. A lot of times folks will just let the frontline women and men go do the work, but you're there. And that is something that I deeply appreciate and that I know has built enormous respect for you within the rank and file of the department. And so I just want to thank you for your leadership and appreciate our partnership. And I do also want to thank you for, we held a hearing not too long ago based on a resolution by Councilmember Ramos in Councilmember Torrance's committee related to some really deep bottlenecks in the fire marshal's office. And what I appreciate is that you took that feedback and you acted to see, one, the positions, the pins move to create more inspectors, and then two, to have moved forward with the third-party plans review and the website and simplifying the process. Just genuinely appreciate your leadership in that. And I would say, my colleague said this yesterday, but I think we're really struggling to operationalize Be More Fast and the permitting process. But that is one area that I feel really proud of, is that the fire department stepped up and made some really necessary changes. So again, I want to thank you for that. My first question this evening has to do with overtime. One of the themes during this series of budget committee hearings has been about vacant positions in agencies that then are translated into overtime, and that the council is asked to retroactively approve supplemental budgets. In your department, particularly for our paramedics, we seem to be really struggling when it comes to filling the positions, and ultimately we're seeing an extraordinary amount of overtime. Can you describe the controls that you are putting in place in order to curtail overtime, and also what you are doing to recruit and retain more EMT paramedics into the force, so that we do not continue to have this issue of exorbitant overtime with a lot of unfilled positions?
Thank you, Council President. And first, thank you for your remarks and your comments. I do appreciate that. So I think it's probably appropriate for me to paint a staffing picture for the fire department first, and what we require on a daily basis to actually fulfill our service obligation to the city of Baltimore. So on a daily basis, our field force for fire suppression, our minimum staffing number is 242. That puts our engines, our trucks, our safety officers, our battalion chiefs, puts them on the street. It puts a full force out there for our residents. In addition to that, our EMS field force on a daily basis is 65. So that puts our EMS transport units, whether they're paramedics, EMTs, our EMS officers, that's our field force, so a total of 307. We require 307 people on a daily basis to provide the service we're obligated to provide. By way of vacancies, and I'll use our A shift as an example, and I'm just going to use random numbers. These aren't factual numbers. But if A shift overall only has 280 people on the shift itself, our telestaff program will look at that, our staffing program will look at that, and it looks at everybody that's working, and it assigns them to their current company assignment. So we fill the seats to the degree at which we have people working. The balance of the program are those vacancies. Now, they could be vacant positions, as has been discussed. They could be positions that particular day just happen to be vacant because of personal leave, sick or illness, things like that, but they're vacant positions. From that, the telestaff program recognizes who is signed up as available for overtime. It takes those people and it'll begin, our telestaff workers will begin to look at them in totality. And they look at what are called overtime buckets. And essentially, Council President, you and I may have signed up on the same day. You have 100 hours of overtime you've already worked, that's in your bucket, but I only have 80. So I'm going to get that particular overtime. It's not to say that you won't, but I'm going to get it ahead of you. That's how the vacancies are filled on a daily basis. And I want to stress that, yes, we're well aware of staffing. We've made huge strides, which I'll talk about in a minute. But vacancies can occur for personal leave reasons as well. So that's, that's something we're always going to have there. Can you repeat the second part of that? I'm sorry, sir.
It was recruitment and retention. Ultimately, the story here is you need more folks to fulfill the work. And so talk to me about efforts to recruit and retain more force.
So about a year ago, we launched a very ambitious recruiting tool. We decided we were going to go out and do it by way of QR code. That gave us a couple of big advantages. One, real-time recruitment. So that initially was a lot of my command staff because we had very few of those that we had actually made up by QR code. However, we were able to expand that initiative, and we put those tools on every piece of fire apparatus in the city. And every event, community event, sporting event, going out to get dinner, going to get breakfast, and in some cases, emergency incident calls. We had a recruitment tool in hand, in a folder, and all they had to do was pull it out and talk to people who want to join the fire department. That list grew exponentially and went well over 1,000 people that we kept internally on a spreadsheet, because it went to an online survey form. It captured some basic data so that we could A, stay in touch with people, acknowledge their interest, not leave them hanging, but stay in touch, and then B, and I'll get to it further in a minute, as we came online with our testing contractor, NTN, we were able to take that data and move it over to them right away so that we could reach back and start contacting people. The second advantage it gave us, quite frankly, is because it was used inside of the city of Baltimore. We were recruiting in the city of Baltimore. So everywhere we went in the city, I hung out the window at a McDonald's one night on Falls Road and recruited 2 people from the drive-through. It's that simple. We just got to approach the citizens of this city, and I think that we've done a very good job of doing that. With regard to retention,
Real quick, before we go to retention, so from that tool, you mentioned 1,000 people. How many actually signed up?
So we know, and I use 1,000 because that's the last number that I was given. I believe it's in excess of 1,000, just to be clear. NTN is given their information, and then the contractor themselves begins to make the contact with them to get them in and test. I don't know that number. We're happy to get that to you. I don't know what that number is because the reason we have the contractor is I completely changed how we hire, how we test, how we process, and we've really jumped to light speed with how we're able to process people through and get them into the department. Special attention to the EMT status right now, which later on I'm sure I'll be explaining that, but we've completely revised how we do all of this.
Yeah, I'd like to make that a data request for the committee. Just if you can let me know, since you brought that tool online and started utilizing it, how many folks have actually signed up?
Yes, sir.
And now feel free to talk to me about retention.
So right now I have a retention plan. However, and respectfully, it's in negotiations right now with Local 734, so I can't go into that, but we do have plan proposals on the table for that.
Okay. Chief, 48 hours in order to get me that data request, is that reasonable, or do you need more than that?
My ask would be just in recognition that we have to collect it, get it through Mager. It is an outside source.
Sure.
That end of next week, if that's fair to you. I think the numbers will only improve in that time, but.
Sure, that's fine. Next 7 days from now.
Yes, sir.
Want to get an accurate.
Yes, sir.
For my folks. Look, I'm going to close here to defer to my colleagues, but again, I think you're doing an extraordinary job, and I think you lead the best fire department in the United States of America and the toughest fire department in the United States of America, and I just want you to know that this council appreciates you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Vice President Middleton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I'd like to start off too by thanking our Baltimore City Police Department and all of the leadership and officers. Just, we can't thank you enough for how you continue to work hard in keeping our residents safe. Can never forget the moment that I decided to join my colleagues in experiencing the some of the training by putting on that heavy suit and going into the fire building. Here they all, that's when I really felt my age. When we got to the point of going into that building, holding, you know, your mind, you have to concentrate on 5 or 6 things at one time. And many of my colleagues made it through, but I kind of backed off and waited for them to come out. And then some of them were soaking wet inside. I mean, just seeing all this, all of us really, you know, we were kind of traumatized. We understood why after working hard and putting out a fire and you come back and you're hungry, you know, I was starving for after that little moment, but we just appreciate the hard work that you do in helping to keep the citizens of Baltimore safe. And you do so much. It's not just putting out fires. I mean, it's the whole gamut, and I hope our, you know, residents listening can really understand how we all appreciate you, because you don't get thank yous enough. And of course, being a representative of the Maryland Association of Counties, and shout out to Allie Smith for helping to get all that application in, and all of you showed up at one of the conferences, and just it just made all of us proud. And these are moments that we really want to keep Baltimore City shining. So continue to apply for those, you know, applications as they come in. I had a conversation with our city administrator, and she agrees, every agency, because we're doing such good work, and when we get opportunities to share some of our good stuff, the 911 awards really went far, and so just keep doing that kind of work as well, because it's important. And then the other piece is that I really saw how you used your leadership with that Camp Small incident. It was working with you side by side and watching how you maneuver with your experience and how your team supports you, and they listen to you, and that leadership comes from the top, and you get credit for that. Even though it takes a team, like I said, it starts from the top. So those skills are so important, and thank you for what you do. So I have one question. I know we had put in some language in the bill to try to do 3 emergency exit drills in older adult buildings. I don't know if that has been started yet, or do you have any update on that?
Yeah, I'm gonna do 2 things. I'm gonna defer to our acting fire marshal, and I'm going to introduce him.
Okay.
So Battalion Chief Robert Hamlin is seated over in row 2 on the far end. He is currently the acting fire marshal, and he'll be able to answer that for you, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you for thank you for that question, Madam Chairman. Again, my name is Robert Hammond III, Acting Deputy Chief Fire Marshal for the Fire Marshal's Office, newly to the position. And I would like to defer that question to my peer, Captain Dawson.
Chain of command.
Good afternoon, Councilpersons. Dennis Dawson, Captain, Office of the Fire Marshal. Councilperson, I remember when we had the hearing on that was implemented. At this time, we will turn around, defer, and have the information provided to you within a timely fashion to pull from our data. As you are aware, we have multiple data sources to pull from.
Thank you.
You're welcome, ma'am.
That's acceptable. And then I just want to end to, your smoke detector program is a wonderful program as well that I know you're like still at the top with that as well compared to other cities around the country. And for us to have that program really helps to save lives as well. So please keep up the good work with that.
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
Is there going to be a problem with funding with that program?
No, we're very stable with that program right now. We're also, we've really rolled out extensively the alarms for hearing impaired, which are kind of quasi called the bed shakers. But essentially what they do is they receive the activation of the smoke alarm. They have a bright light that flashes in a way that they're actually, for those that may not hear a smoke alarm as they lay in bed asleep, it actually disturbs the bed that they're laying in. So that's an enhanced device that we're pushing really hard right now and has been received very well in a lot of the communities and in some of the discussions we've had with some of the community associations. I just had it the other day with 3 ladies that represent the 2900 block of West North up in that area. They were very excited about that, and we're working on an opportunity to go up and actually present to them. But we're happy to, and I say this everywhere I go, we're very happy to come out at the request of council or community associations to present and show these devices. They're going to go a long ways.
And then lastly, something that just popped in my mind, something about blood work. An update on, is there a program or something that has to do with blood work?
Madam Chairwoman McCray, City Council President Cohen, ladies and gentlemen, City Council. For the record, my name is James Matz. I'm the Assistant Chief of EMS and 911. Are you talking about whole blood? Is that what you're asking about?
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
So whole blood is one of the more innovative programs that's really come online over the last year or two with EMS. The MIMS, our governing agency, Maryland Institute for Emergency Medical Services System, approved that use. It actually started with the medevac system through the state police, and it's actually progressed quite rapidly. Whole blood, the oxygen carrying capacity of whole blood and blood products when there's a traumatic injury or a medical emergency can't be said enough for improving patient outcomes. Currently, what they're trying to do is they're trying to make a more of a regional approach to the use of whole blood. What does that mean? That means that everybody's using the same systems, the same type of administration set, so it's really interchangeable. And I'm happy and sad to report currently within our region, there's 8 counties surrounding us that are currently using whole blood. Montgomery County, Howard County, Maryland State Police, as I had said, DC, Carroll County, Frederick County, Hartford, and Cecil are coming online. Unfortunately, Baltimore City and Baltimore County, as of yet, haven't been able to do that to come online.
Okay. So that's something you say we desperately need to do.
Yeah, it's expensive per unit of blood. Blood costs around approximately $550 a unit. There's a lot of controls and measures you have to use with blood. Currently, we're in talks with LifeBridge. LifeBridge wants to be one of the suppliers for that. There's also some of the surrounding jurisdictions using another supplier up in the Northeast. So we've done a lot of research on it. We've submitted some requests to be able to do that.
Okay.
I think it'll make a difference.
And have you had conversation with the administration on this subject as of yet?
So we have, I think what needs to be understood is the blood itself, what we don't want to do is give the impression with regards to just trauma, right? Hemorrhagic shock or blood loss, that occurs for a whole lot of reasons. Internal bleeding, there's a lot of medical reasons. There are even trauma reasons that are outside the arena of assault. But what has to happen is this is not like just picking up a new drug and putting it on a medic unit. This is going to take, as Chief Matt said, there's controls, there's climate control, there's accountability, program managers. So yes, it's something we are currently working through.
Thank you for bringing this to our attention as well. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councilman Gray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, I just want to say thank you to the fire department, to you, Chief Wallace. You've always been there for us over in the 8th District, even time before when you were at OEM, always a wealth of knowledge, support, and just have the utmost respect for you. And when you went over to the fire department, I knew just overall when it comes to operations, you guys were going to be in great hands. Also, a shout out to Director Reddick and the great work that they're doing over at 911, doing a lot. When I went to Command Center, it was just really awesome. Just one, to see the great work you're doing, but two, the camaraderie that you guys have there. And having a friend that works there, and just know how you guys like hang out. I just know that it's a very close-knit group, and I appreciate that. I would like to start, and just bear with me because it's going to be a little bit, and I do apologize, madam, because I want to provide context for my colleagues. I see that there's an allocation for $400,000 to fund 20 spots through a partnership with Baltimore City Public Schools. In 2022, as some of you may know, my predecessor, Councilman Christopher Burnett, passed the Public Safety Apprenticeship Program, which this ordinance required the following. In FY23, the department shall have 10 EMT or firefighter cadets, for which the FY23 budget allocated $456,777 to achieve this. 0 cadets from this program were reported. In FY24, the department shall have 15 EMS/fire cadets, for which the FY24 budget maintained the funding for $456,770. To achieve this, and yet 0 cadets from this program were reported. In fiscal year 25, the department shall have 20 EMT fire cadets, for which the FY budget was reduced to $400,000, but still funded to achieve this. And in FY26, the department shall have 25 EMT/fire cadets, for which you are now requesting an additional $400,000. However, it is only to fund 20 cadets and not the 25 as stipulated in the ordinance. Can you please explain to this council where all of this money is, given that FY23 and 24, the public safety apprenticeship was not established, and why isn't the goal set for what the ordinance stipulates?
So thank you for the question. With regard to those earlier 22, 23, I can't. That predates me. I cannot provide an explanation to that. What I can tell you is it was my understanding, and I likely have been given bad information or was given bad information. It was my understanding at the time that the award that was given to us was a one-time investment of, and I don't know why 800,000 sticks in my mind, but that number sticks in my mind. That by the time that I was in position to be able to do what I would do, we were not going to get a measurable result out of that. What I can say is that since then, and as in part of her realm, Dr. Hart, who is our new Chief Administrative Officer, has been charged with re-standing up that program. She's been working on it for quite a while right now, and front-loaded a lot of activity and resources. I don't want to steal her thunder, but to the piece at which I can speak directly to, some of that predated me, and it was not my understanding that there was a funding that existed in that 400 or 476, Councilman, my apologies for the exact number. That was not my understanding that was every year.
Could you provide clarity for that, please, CEO?
Got it.
So let us go back as a follow-up and go back year by year and gather the information. My recollection was there was one-time funding at first. So we'll have to go back. I think you had said you want to go back to fiscal 22.
2022 is when it was passed, but it's fiscal year 23, 20, and 24 is when the allocation of the $456,770 were allocated for the positions.
Okay, we can track that down. We'll have to do just the research in each year, and if it's okay, we can provide it as a follow-up.
I'm going to have a committee request that will probably just be able to handle all that. So, I'll just hold off on that. So my follow-up to that is now that we are, we have the additional 400,000 to stand up the program. How are we ensuring that students from all over Baltimore City, and I'm being very direct with all over Baltimore City,
yes, sir,
are going to be able to participate in this program and not just one or two schools?
Sir, I'm going to defer right over to Dr. Hart as she's got the plan.
Good evening. Dr. Shante Hart, Chief Administrative Officer. As Chief Wallace said, we have gone back to ground zero to start this project and to get us to where we need to be so that we can engage these students and hopefully bring them into the fire department. We're working along with Baltimore City Public Schools. The plan to engage all students, because I know that you are aware that we are in the CTE programs right now. That was the way for us to effectively and efficiently get into the schools, start working with Baltimore City Public Schools, and develop a relationship with the school system and with these kids. What we want to do moving forward, and the way that we're going to address citywide, we're going to start with the Youth Works program, and we did initially start with just the children or the students who were in the CTE program, and then understanding that we needed to address children in Baltimore City or students in Baltimore City citywide. We went back and we revamped that. So we started with just 12 students for our Youth Works program. We have increased that to 35. And so we will have 30 students at the Baltimore City Fire Academy as a part of our new program. And we will have 5 students going to Director Reddick in the 911 center to work along with her and her staff there. So that was our way of getting involved. We've already worked with the school system. We've already worked with Youth Works. The children have applied. We have accepted the kids that are going to work along with us. And that program, it begins with Youth Works. So we'll have them there July 7th through August 8th. And then what we've also done to further address the kids in the city and reach out to the students citywide is that we have started reaching out agency-wide within our department to members to identify the actual schools that they've attended within Baltimore City to start a mentoring program. They've expressed great interest in going back to those schools, starting a mentoring program with the students at that school to introduce them to the Baltimore City Fire Department and what we have to offer. So that is our hope, that it will kind of fuel their interest further into the department. So that's how we're starting off with addressing students citywide.
I appreciate that answer, but Youth Works is a summer program.
Mm-hmm.
And if we could train folks in a true pipeline to only take a summer, I'm sure that the firefighters union would clap their hands, because they probably want that for their everyday rank and file for training to take that long. And so we're still not, to me, addressing the overall essence of what this bill was intended for, which is supposed to build a pipeline for Baltimore City young men and women to go into the field, whether it's EMT, whether it's the call center, whether it is being a firefighter, rank and file. This is what the intent of the bill was for. And so while I appreciate the start for YouthWorks, that is just not enough. And what really, frankly, worries me is fiscal year 27, the bill states, if funding is available, we can continue this program. And so with budgetary constraints happening probably for the foreseeable future, at least for the next 4 years, there's no guarantee that funds are going to be available. And so when we're talking about this apprenticeship program and being intentional about it, it's up in the air next year. And so unless we can get a commitment for it, it seems like it was just put on the wayside. I'm not saying that's what happened, but it seems like it's being put on the wayside for it to just die. And so now what we have is we're trying to build something up when the intentionality was for this to be one of the last years so we could see that this project is actually working. And so I have a committee request. I would like to have, and I've given it to the committee chair already, if we could have FY23, FY24, and FY25, the annual report that was stipulated in the bill. And if we can have that in 2 weeks. And so I'm not gonna go over the entire ordinance, it would take way too long. Everyone has it, and we can definitely just send it over to you, and I think Kimmy's actually gonna give you a copy of it. And so, like I said, I appreciate everything that you guys are doing, but this is something that is really important because I think when we think about how, when we look at some of the agencies and some of the departments that are doing great, we look at the law department. Emily Thompson is a city person. You know, some of our best departments have our best and brightest that are here. They know our districts, they know our people, they know our streets. And if we're not going to put the needed investment into Baltimore City kids, then who's going to do it? And so, and this doesn't just help out just firefighters. We're talking about police. We're talking about 911. We're talking about people that can work the desk in Baltimore City Police. These are vacancies that we're dying for people to fill, and we have a program that is set up for this. So it's just sometimes it's very frustrating to come here every year as a person that was in the office and now the person that is assuming the office and not have any results. I don't know if you want to follow up on that. If you don't, that's perfectly fine. Yeah.
Sure. So thank you so much for that. And thank you so much for your commitment and your passion around this issue. We've actually had a number of conversations about the cadet program in FireStat and some opportunities that we could identify to strengthen and actually launch the cadet program. So I want to make a commitment, and I also want to acknowledge another partnership. So Chief Wallace, actually this came from, I went to the Federal Hill Community Association meeting, and one of the leaders at Digital Harbor came up to me afterwards because they have a 911 call taker program at Digital Harbor. And they said that they wanted to be connected to the fire department so that we could create that pipeline of 911 call takers. And so Deputy Mayor Merrill on my team worked with the fire department and connected the team to the folks at Digital Harbor so that we could bring those young people in so we can start to train them to be 911 call takers. I will follow up and provide you all a status of that conversation. This was, what, 2 or 3 months ago? It was in January, I think, when I went to the Federal Hill Community Association meeting. So I'm gonna follow up, provide you a status update on that partnership. And then here's my commitment on this, because I too believe in the power of cadet programs. I've seen them create that pipeline and introduce our young people to new careers and opportunities, which Council President Cohen, with the work that we're doing with city schools and of course the mayor's office around creating these career pathways, that this is the perfect opportunity. So what I want us to be able to do is to follow up with you around what we can do over the next, year, that would allow us to get to, that full throttle program that you're looking for. So I just want you to hear it from me that we are absolutely committed to figuring this out, but allow me to work with the team to come up with a plan to report back to you. And then, Bob, we just need to confirm the funding and the resources that we have to get this done.
I appreciate that, and we all get it. I mean, my passion comes from the need to see more people like me in some of these high positions, or just the comfortability of having someone that is representative from your community being able to come back and show their badge, or show they can do something else other than what most kids are seeing every day. So I definitely appreciate that answer.
Yep. And just to put a more finite point on what we will do as a follow-up, what we will commit to is a meeting with the leadership at the school system to talk about where there might be opportunities for us to partner, much like the 911 call taker program that I was not aware of. So we will talk to the school system, meet with them, see where we can partner, follow up with you.
Thank you so much. And for my second question, in the last fiscal year, the Baltimore City Fire Department paramedic became the city's highest paid employee, earning $358,586, with 68% of that attributed to overtime. And I think we talked about this a little last week. Can you give us a breakdown of how many hours total this individual worked to accrue this level of overtime? And I ask this because I'm sincerely concerned about burnout, fatigue on the job, which I also talked about last week, and also making sure that when people are showing up that it's going to be our best and brightest. And there's an article I just read that actually referenced you, Councilwoman Ramos, that talked about that, and it literally talked about one person leaving to go to Milwaukee to make $60,000, which is way less. And it was because they were just burnt out. They just was like, you know what, I'd rather just go somewhere else. And so we don't want that. We want to make sure that our folks are going to be here and work their best, but also not to the tune of $300,000.
Thank you for that question, Councilman. I appreciate that. I do have the member you're speaking of in front of me. Bearing in mind the report that I have, it actually exceeds a one-year period, but the average for that member was per month was 281 hours per month in overtime. So that's the number I have in front of me. The problem with this report is it exceeds a 12-month period, so I can't give you an exact number because the number I have is much larger than a 12-month period. So, but his average per month was 281 hours of overtime.
Okay, that's like 6 hours a day. But I also know that we talked yesterday that, and I don't know if you guys have the same type of thing as BPD, but if you call someone in or they miss a day, they get triple the pay, or like how is someone accumulating 6 hours a day?
Yeah. So Chief, if you can talk about, so there are maximum hours that our firefighters can work before they are required to take time off. So can you talk a little bit about some of the details in the contract?
Yeah, there's a maximum hours that they can work consecutively, but what there's not a control there. I don't have it by way of a labor agreement or contract to say you can only work, I'll just use random numbers, 100 hours a week, and then I can stop you. That's not a control that's there. So what again, to go back to the kind of the scenario I painted for the council president, as an individual goes very high in hours, the likelihood of them getting overtime comes way down. Now, that doesn't make sense given the amount of money, right, that they made. What that does is it speaks to the two things. One, this individual's desire to work, right? That's concerning with that many hours. Having been a paramedic on a medic unit like they are, I don't know how they do it. I wasn't able to do it in my 20s, so I don't know how they're doing that. But the other thing is, you know, there's a commitment there. They're riding the medic unit, and we did check when, you know, when that information first came out. We actually did check both through fiscal by way of payroll audit, but we can also look at any given day a person reports to have worked overtime. We can look into the PCR, the patient care report database, and actually see if that person was there functioning. So, that individual was there, but I can't cease their work. I can't say you're not allowed to work overtime. I don't have that management right.
Okay, definitely appreciate that, that answer. And if you're ever looking for somebody to do something that isn't in the line of fire as a part-time worker, I'm just gonna let you know that I am available. But I just want to take that Youth Works cadet class so I can just take that 1 month to become one of you guys, and then go ahead and throw me on board.
Yes, sir, understood.
That's all my questions for this round. Thank you.
Vice President Middleton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just quickly, on the subject of apprenticeship, another, I think an important resource would be to also contact the State Department of the apprenticeship system, because they actually have a format. I remember as a past director of the apprenticeship system for the state that there was a program, and unfortunately it folded for a number of reasons I won't go into, but because this governor is very attuned to apprenticeships, there might also be some money available as well. So I think we should really look into that.
Thank you, Councilman Schleifer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chief, I just want to thank you for the great work that you're doing, you and your team. You guys are really excellent. It's great that every major incident that occurs, you yourself are out there, and that speaks volumes to you and to the work you're doing. And the firefighters recognize that and appreciate seeing you on the scene of all these incidents, even small incidents. I see you there, so I think you need a hobby, but it's great that you're always out there. So thank you for that. Chief Matz, if you can just talk a little bit about where we are with EMS, like transports. Two things of particular interest. Number one, the EMS wait times at hospitals, because obviously that affects your deployment tremendously. Has that improved since the last time we spoke about that?
Thank you for your question, Councilman. Honestly, the offload times have been pretty level. Over the last week, our average offload times vary. Regionally, the offload time runs about 44 minutes. In that Baltimore area, that average is running about 50 minutes. And then our top 4 hospitals run between, and this is 90th percentile. A lot of times you'll get a lot of the median report. Median just looks good because it's the middle of the road time. What we're looking from an operational perspective is the 90th percentile, or 9 times out of 10, how fast can I get you out of the hospital? And that time last week varied between 51 minutes to 45 minutes. The goal of the state is to do it within 30 minutes. There's actually a large push in this region. They're trying to come up with a regional offload policy. We currently have a policy, it's called 30, 60, 90. 30 minutes, you notify a supervisor, 60 minutes, this happens, and then at 90 minutes, a chief comes. Regionally, a lot of people are using 60 minutes as the high end of that threshold. They want everybody in the area to go on it, so they're not using different times. We're getting ready to fall in line with them as well, so that Baltimore County's not using this time, Baltimore City's using that, Anne Arundel's using that. So there is some significant move. There's also been a lot of move on the state from the HSCRC, Health Service Cost Review Commission, or the people that pay the hospitals. Their performance and offload is one of those metrics they want to look at. And one of those things that they're trying to get us down to is that 30-minute window. So we have a little ways to go. It's way better than it was during the pandemic. Those times were crazy back then, but we have a little bit of ways to go.
So who are the best and who are the worst, if you're looking at the last week's times?
Last week's times, the best hospital would have been MedStar U Memorial with an average offload time of 25 minutes. The bottom, you remember it's regional, so you can be talking Howard County and so forth. Howard County General was at the bottom last week. Within our area, Sinai would have been in the bottom 4 at about 51 minutes. But understand within that 5-minute window, there's 4 or 5 hospitals right in that 50 to 45 type window. So it's plus or minus. It goes up and down week to week. Last week, there was another hospital that was at the bottom.
So they're still in last place. I mean, that's where we were at the last hearing also. Sinai was in last place.
Not dead last, but last in the area.
Last in the city, yeah. So basically, based on that time differential, it would be quicker to just drive to a different hospital because you'd be seen quicker.
There's a lot of aspects that go into us with offload and so forth. When we get to the end of a really big problem, we will, if something goes in excess of 90 minutes to 2 hours, we either force offload a patient, which means if it's low priority, we'll put them in a wheelchair. If it's that bad, we'll actually put somebody in the ambo and then take them to a different hospital. The hospitals do get fined when we do that. It's a big violation. That's like a last case scenario. What we try to do is to work with the hospital and the administration to improve that. There's a lot of offload and escalation pathways we use with different hospitals. The idea is to get everybody using the same method of offload and the same escalation pathways. I think we're getting closer than further to that. That's some of the stuff that we're meeting about next week for the Region 3, so.
All right, thank you. And my second question, I have an idea on that, but I'll save it. My second question is regarding the money that we recoup for EMS transports. How do those numbers look based on how much money we're recouping from EMS transports?
Do you want to take it? Let me take it first. Yeah, so there's a total of about $78 million in the fiscal 26 budget for EMS revenue. It essentially covers the full cost of service now. You'll notice in this year's budget, we eliminated, there used to be a special fund where we would handle that. We felt like it's much just cleaner to show EMS revenue as a general fund source, and the expenditures are all in the general fund now in the service and the fire department budget. But the long and the short of it is, between the revenue we're already getting and the proposed fee increase this year, it basically covers the full cost of EMS services.
So in the past year, we covered the full cost? This current fiscal year, we're covering full cost?
I believe we very close to covering the full cost. But we are proposing a fee increase next year as well. That's part of the budget. And so we'll be able to cover the full cost.
I didn't notice that. So on the fee increase, wouldn't that put us over the full cost? Because if most people are on Medicare and they're that's being paid, and then a lot of people have private insurance, if we're really close to it, how would we not surpass it by increasing the fees?
So it won't. So if you look at the numbers, there's the revenue in the general fund revenue side of the budget. There's the cost of EMS, but there are other services that EMS consumes that are in other services. So we check that to make sure that it doesn't go over. I think of it as kind of similar to like how we handle HUR revenue. Like you can't have more revenue than you do expenses. You have to make sure the expenses. So it basically about covers the cost, but you can't bring in more revenue than you spend from those particular services.
So non-direct service-related revenues, costs will be included in that package?
Not non-direct. I mean, there are things that are in other services in the budget. For example, like fleet cost and building costs and things of that sort that are related to supporting that service.
Interesting. Can we make it a committee request, Madam Chair, just to get a list of all of the items that could be included in that calculation?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay. And when can we get that?
I mean, by next week to pull it all together.
Oh, beginning of the week?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
We have your request. Councilman Conway.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good to see you guys. I feel like I see you guys a lot and I'm always appreciative when I do. Mr. President said this earlier, but I do believe, and I agree with him, we do have the best department in the country. You guys are truly amazing, and I have to give you a lot of credit, Chief Wallace, for all the work that you've done since coming in, and how effective you have been at addressing the issues that we brought to you. I come with a lot of issues. I bring them up, and we're very direct with you. And each time you've adapted and you've improved, and you have a phenomenal set of chiefs behind you that execute incredibly well. So I'm really, really proud of the work that you guys are doing, and it's a pleasure to work with you. I really am thrilled to see the progress that we've made. We are still far from perfect. We still have work to do on overtime. I have no question that we'll figure it out. I wanted to, noting the overtime issue, and namely that being a factor of shortages primarily around paramedics. One of the things we talked about in one of our oversight hearings, I think earlier this month, was the prospect of training internally for paramedics, and how that process had changed, where we no longer train paramedics internally. Can you tell me a little bit about what it might take for us to reconsider that? It may not look quite like it used to, but what might we be able to do to incentivize EMTs to put in the work to become paramedics, and potentially have them climb the ladder? I think my colleague from the 8th is talking a lot about efforts to bring folks earlier in on the ladder, but I think we need some folks who are already on the ladder to move up, and I'm curious what prospects we have there.
Yes, sir, and thank you for that question. I think we're at a point in time with EMS service where we're at a great point where we can act, where we can develop something that I think can be bigger than any of us are right here. We know right now that the shortage for paramedics nationwide, it exceeds 30%. Not by a lot, but it's up over 30%. We, as a city of Baltimore, are right around 28%. So we're, for all intents and purposes, we're there as well, but, we're just slightly below that. Since our new HR director has gotten here, she's been very aggressive, as has her team, with putting out the job postings, but not only in Workday, but we expanded out to LinkedIn and some of the other sites that she uses. And we've seen a huge return in EMTs. So that is a very positive sign, but I'll put that aside for a minute. What we're not seeing are paramedics.
Right.
However, internally, we see an interest from our EMTs to actually take the paramedic course. Predating us, we were accredited as a department, we're not now. So what do we have to do? We believe that, and we've worked with Local 734 on this to try to figure out a way to navigate actually getting our people into the college courses, right? Because EMT is now a college course, and that's the struggle. It's a lot harder than what it used to be. Even when we all came through as paramedics, that paramedic curriculum is way harder than what it used to be. So we've got to try to get them into the local colleges. As a department, and obviously as a city, we have tuition reimbursement. So check that box. That's a big plus, I think. If we get them into that, we have tuition reimbursement. Then it's just a matter of scheduling. If the courses are happening during the week and when the EMTs are supposed to work, how do we work and we find that sweet spot between them using vacation and we giving them time off, AKA making that investment in them as well? I believe we've already run a couple of cohorts. We've done a couple of runs with it, and Chief Matz can speak to that. However, I believe interest is growing in that, so much so that now when we go out and talk to them, we actually make it a recruitment tool. We'll bring you in as EMTs. We just talked to the latest class a couple of weeks ago. You're coming in as EMTs, you'll hit the street as EMTs. Big advantage working in the city of Baltimore. High call volume, they see a lot. As they go into that paramedic curriculum, they've likely experienced it through quasi-OJT, right, on-the-job training. You back that with an ability to schedule, work with their schedule, and then tuition reimbursement. I think that's a huge program, and that's the direction we're headed.
So, excuse me, I just want to go ahead and real quick and piggyback behind the chief and just talk about hours real quick. To be an EMT and to go a little bit further behind Councilman Gray's question, EMT is a 207-hour. MIFRE is the state governing board. It takes roughly 207 hours. Like the chief said, it's a college, it's a sophomore college level course. It's a critical thinking test. It's not the kind of test we took in school where it's 1 right answer and 3 wrong answer. There could be 2 or 3 right answers. And when you take this computerized test, you have to figure out the best of that. Now, going from EMT to paramedic, you're going from 207 hours. Most programs run about 1,800 hours to be a paramedic. They're college level courses. They take multiple years to invest in that time. We've been working very close with BCCC as well with Hartford and some other areas surrounding us to try to find the best model. I will tell you, pre-pandemic, paramedic classes had 30 to 40 students in every class. During the pandemic, they were down to 5. From what I'm hearing now, class size is roughly 10 to 15. Problem is, whenever you get in that class, because of how hard the curriculum is, you're going to lose some out of the class. What we're doing and what Chief was talking about is the cohorts. We have existing EMTs that are attending that paramedic program. The first cohort that we had was roughly 11 people that we did that. The problem with supporting that program, it's kind of a catch-22. Guess what? I'm giving somebody off work. Guess what I'm costing? I'm costing overtime because I'm trying to give you off in time to go to school to be able to attend that class. So it's kind of that balancing act where we try to work with. Some courses in other areas are mirrored, which means they do it at daytime and nighttime, and they're the ideal ones. Right now, they're not doing this locally, except maybe Hartford County is doing it. So we don't have to give as much time back from that. But from that first cohort, we were able to pick up, out of 11 students, we were actually able to pick up 6 to 7 paramedics. Now, the bad side of that, a couple of that 6 to 7 went to the suppression side, which does me no good, I gotta be honest with you. So we gotta figure out how to tighten that piece up. The second cohort that's in right now, we have 14 strong people in there right now, but it's piecemeal. You gotta understand, these courses are multiple years. It's not a simple semester course like you're seeing for EMT. One of the things we talked about, Councilman Gray, to talk about what your question was, is there's no end date for the 207 EMT hours. So we can do that over the course of multiple years. We don't have to jam it into a real quite tight semester. That's one of the things we want to explore with Dr. Hart. Maybe we piecemeal these people and teach them some additional study skills, critical thinking, some additional test taking. But it's going to be a multi-year investment, just like we're doing with the paramedics. We would love to teach paramedic like we used to. I used to be one of the teachers back in the day. About 2016, they changed the requirements. We're not allowed to teach our own paramedic. We used to teach it mirrored day and night. It was a great program. If you were working night work, you went day, or you worked on one of your days off, it was a great thing. Now we have to be tied into an institution of higher learning, like BCCC or one of the area colleges. That's an expensive proposition because I have to pay the college, even though the instructors are a lot of hours. They're talking about credit hours and things like that. It's one of the third options we're investigating, but that's the most expensive. So we have a lot of different pans in the fire trying to help that program, as well as our aggressive recruitment. We've been doing a great job. I know the chief was just talking about using some of the different recruitment tools like Indeed and things like that, LinkedIn. We have a class in the hopper. We currently have a class of 18 that are in the fire academy. I think it's 16 EMTs, 2 paramedics. See that disparity in the numbers? We're also looking at a class coming in right about 7-9. I think there's 46 EMTs and roughly 5 paramedics in that. That's very early. They have to go through the physical fitness tests and so forth, but the numbers are getting there. We're just at the point now, as an EMS service, as are the partners around the region, we're having to do things smarter, more effective, more innovative than you're seeing around. That's where things like telemedicine, population health, things like that's where we're doing the nurse diversion coming up soon. So I think we're on the right track. It's just not going to be a 5-minute job. It's going to be a slow return on investment.
Sure, and I appreciate how you guys are thinking about this. There's certainly no easy answers here, and you know, as we sort of jockey to figure out what works best for us, balancing overtime, balancing schedules, balancing training, and otherwise, you know, I'm eager to figure out what it takes for us to solve the problem and the problem that is created with overtime as a result of not having enough folks. So appreciate the insights here, and To clarify, today, for the most part, we are looking to fill our paramedics positions by recruiting. That's generally how we do it today. Is that correct?
That's literally the only way we can do it right now.
Got it. So I would love to, if we can issue this as a follow-up, our plan to scope out or prospect out what a internal training program might look like. What's an appropriate timeline for you guys to get us a draft of what that may look like? Whatever you need, Chief Matz, whatever you need. We got time.
No, and believe me, we would love to say we're doing it now and we can get it tomorrow if not. But I think for us to map something out, we're going to need a few weeks to figure out. We know what we want. We just can't be blinded by what's not realistic. And I think we're trying to be very, we're trying to work with intent so that once we prop something up, it just takes off and goes. So if you could give us a couple of weeks on that would
30 days? I realize that we're not going to solve this problem in a week. So
yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. And then if I may, it says a second question. I'm curious for, and maybe it's a question for CA. Is the fire department receiving any restitution funds?
Yes.
Okay. And what is that for again?
Bob, help me with this. They are receiving it for the contracted EMS.
Units. Yep, and then the 911 nurse triage program is going to be charged there in the population health initiative as well.
Awesome.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, because I know one of the things we talk a lot about in our oversight meetings is the sort of burden that responding to the folks dealing with addiction have, and I know it's a constant challenge, I think, for the department, and so I'm eager to see how those funds will help us address the challenge across the city. So I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Parker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Chief Wallace, and the entire fire department team. We've spent, I'm sure this is true of a lot of my colleagues, but we've spent way too much time together out in the field, responding to fires, but your professionalism, your response, your care for folks there is absolutely exceptional. That goes up and down the entire department. I've watched you all save lives and save property and protect neighbors, and I've watched you all care for family members and loved ones in the aftermath of situations where people were lost. And you do both, which are really different skill sets and really different kinds of professional activity. You do both incredibly well. And so I'm grateful that you're able to serve our communities in all circumstances. And not just in the moment, but there have been moments when, as part of fire response and caring for victims after the fact, you and your staff have been incredibly responsive to continue to provide services for folks as they've kind of sorted through the mess of their lives and looked for documentation, looked for answers, or looked for their fire inspection reports and all the rest. I feel like it's really easy in emergency response because the calls keep coming. And so to make the time and the space to also continue to care for and work to support the people that were last week or the week before is an incredibly valuable commitment. And so I appreciate that. I know Director Henderson left, but I wanted to thank him in particular as well, and the work of OEM and a lot of those fire scenes, and also to call out the CERT program, which has been fantastic and has been a huge benefit to expanding community response and community capacity. The questions are pretty straightforward. We've had some conversation here already. You lifted up in your reports, and I know we've been having conversations among council and with the mayor's office and with you for a long time on the fire inspection side. I just wanted to make sure I know exactly where the dust settled after all those conversations. I see the $500,000 mentioned here. This is in 611, right, for permit review and fire inspections. But I thought there was also supposed to be an increase in contracted services as well to do that third-party aspect of things, and I don't see that lifted up in the fiscal year 2025 to 2026. It looks like contracted services is only going up $1,100, and so I just want to make sure I know. Remind us, in terms of staff on your team, how many additional people are we adding, and what exactly are we getting contractually to?
So I'll start with the plans reviewers.
Right.
There's, when the permits come in, they've got to review the plans. So the plans reviewers, by way of the reclassifications that we did, we took the 3 sworn positions, the 3 paramedic positions, and we reclassed over to civilian planners. Those are where 3 of them are going to come from, right? That was we started working on this like 6 months ago. It became very apparent to me that we had to go in another direction. The $500,000 that's in the budget book that we're, I think is that what you're asking about?
Yeah.
So we have a couple of ways we can go with that. Right now, we have 33 inspectors in the fire marshal's office. So set plans reviewers aside, we'll talk about inspectors. We have 33 inspectors right now inside of the fire marshal's office. We have and we're full, by the way, so there are no vacancies over there. So the $500,000 can do a couple of things for us. We can pivot that around to plans reviewers and continue to expand that out and invest in more plans reviewers. I think that would be 2 or 3 people, or we have to work through the civil service process and create 2 additional inspector positions in the fire marshal's office. Currently, we have a list of eligible candidates, and that list is too deep. So you see this is starting to line up pretty well for us. It looks like right now the most favorable way, the path of least resistance, and the most timely way would be just to go through the process, create those 2 positions as new positions.
As inspectors?
Yes, sir, and we'll jump to 35. We've got 2 available. They can promote. But the other thing that we've done is we've proactively offered internally fire inspector 1 and 2 training. They have to have those classes in order to be eligible to test for those positions. 1 class has been given, fire inspector 1. The 2nd class is about to be given, and the classes are full. So we have good turnout internally. We have good interest in that. We have good turnout. The final piece I'll tell you is we are also going to, we're going to offer plans reviewer 1 and 2. Those classes. And I don't know when the last time was we've had them. Chief Shiley could probably speak to that. I know it's been a number of years. What I'm attempting to do, though, is time that class so that when these civilian hires occur, the classes occur after they're employees of ours. We put them in our own training internally. The only timeline challenge is when Chief Shiloh asks for that class, it takes about she's got to give 45 days to get a course number. So there will be a little bit of delay there. It's not going to hamper what we can do with our new hires internally. But I think we have a clear pathway forward to invest the $500,000, get 2 more inspectors out of it, yet continue down the path with the civilian employees in plans review. It's kind of running side by side parallel as, a big improvement.
Great. And contracted services, the third-party review of some permits?
So third-party review, and I'm actually going to, I'm going to start, and I'm going to defer back to Chief White and Chief Hamlin a little bit. Third-party review is simply a program that provides opportunity for customers to get a third party to review those plans. So we've already been doing that on larger buildings. What we put out today and what we're pushing forward are what I like to call some of those lower impact type inspections. Right. An increase in sprinkler heads, restaurant hood systems and things like that. So that's not going to have a financial impact on us. But I also, Chief White can give you a little clarity on that as well.
Thank you, Councilman. Kensington White III, Executive Assistant Chief. So today we did formally launch a soft rollout of a third-party plans review. So what that is, where we have known trusted contractors to do work, they can do relocation of 50 sprinkler heads or less, relocation of 20 alarm fire devices, and kitchen hood systems. So what we're looking for that to do is to take some of those those low-hanging fruit plans review and streamline that process so that we can get them in and out within 7 days. Now, noting that we keep the final approval process, so we ensure life safety at the final end, but we can let that work begin knowing that they have had a third party review that plan.
And folks are paying for that. That's why there's no financial impact, is the customer or the client is the one who's paying for that service, because it's a benefit to them to have it happen faster and an easier process.
Correct.
Great. The second question has to do with Service 610, the Fire and Emergency Community Outreach. I mean, we've been out knocking with you all on doors, and both after fires and proactively. We know how important this work is. And I was really impressed by the numbers and what this group has accomplished. It's a really, relative to the other service lines, it's a really small number and only 2 sworn staff. Would somebody be able to speak to how, because I know that the work is much bigger than those 2 people. Would somebody speak to the ways in which those 2 staff are able to carry out and mobilize the much broader educational and community outreach mission that we know is taking place? Help us connect the small budget to the big action.
Sure. Thank you for that question. So the way our community outreach currently works is most of our requests come in through the website. That website then feeds into the email. The captain mainly monitors their email, makes an interface with the community person who's asking for our services, whether that's hands-only CPR, Narcan training, whether that's an apparatus request, whether that's community association meetings, whatever the request is. They then transfer that out to the shift commander's office, and then we lean on our suppression pieces to get out into the community and partner up with their neighbors. So they'll go out, your local fire station will come out to your event, let you know what fire safety issues and trends are going on in your area, and kind of report back where we're seeing that data and what can we do for your community. So I think that one person at Hub kind of directs out what needs to be. So that person or those people technically are like the flight control people, right? They kind of direct it where it needs to go.
Great. Specifically under that, one of the really impressive performance numbers is the 9,324 doses of Narcan kits left behind, which was almost twice the target goal for the year. That's fantastic. I mean, it's sad that it's so necessary, but it's incredibly important that you all are doing such a great job of delivering that resource out to the community. Given that it was so much higher than the target number, and I wasn't sure where, I couldn't find the budget line item that said this is where we're paying for Narcan. So I'm curious, given that it was almost twice as much as we targeted, which is that's where we need to be spending our money, but I'm curious what the budgetary impacts of doing such a good job there were.
So thank you for your question. So basically the numbers are so elevated, we really didn't know what kind of performance we were going to have of our population health initiative and our leave behind initiative. So we used 5,000 numbers. The success of that program has been far beyond what we had expected them to be able to do. I mean, the numbers you have are actually low. The numbers as of last week, they've left 15,290 kits behind, or 30,000 doses of Narcan. That has a huge impact. What does that impact? That doesn't mean that the overdoses aren't happening. That means that they're self-treating each other, and that's reducing our call volume to those types of emergencies. We've calculated last year roughly a 29% reduction in those calls. So we're trying to get to the next step with some of the things like the opioid restitution fund and things like that. So we've taken the kits out, we've built rapport with people on the street. Now we need to get people in treatment when they're ready to get into that treatment. So that's where we're at with that. And then in terms of the money, we're really lucky. Leave behind Narcan, there's 2 different kinds of Narcan. There's a Narcan the paramedics use, or naloxone, which is the injectable we use in IVs. There's also the intranasal, which is what they leave behind with people on the street. We're considered an ORP, an opioid program. So what they do is the state provides that Narcan for us, and we're very lucky with that. That's where the numbers are down. But we get a lot of really good work out of those people. And honestly, I think you're just looking at the Narcan. What you really need to look at with that crew, they leave behind, food and water distributed, 1,654 times. Miscellaneous resources, 8,559. Fentanyl test strips, 1,128. Xylazine test strips, 1,118. Wound care kits, because people that do this usually have huge wounds that need treatment, 1,776, and they were actually able to get 22 people into treatment. That doesn't sound like a lot, but that's a hell of a lot of work with people, building rapport and building relationships with those. So I think you just got the tip of the iceberg with what you were looking at.
No, thank you so much for the responses there, for all the good work being done, and and for taking such good care of our neighbors in crisis situations. It's needed. We all know that, and we appreciate it so much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councilwoman Ramos.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And again, I echo my colleague's sentiments about how great the department is. And yes, we do spend a lot of time at disasters together, that's for sure. And of course, I've learned so much. This is the best part of my job is I get to learn so much. So I've learned a lot from all of you. So I would want to just go a little deeper on what my colleague from the first was talking about in terms of the inspections and permits, if you don't mind. So just to clarify that in March, in our first hearing, the staffing was that you had 28 fire inspectors and now you have 32, did I hear you say?
We have 33 fire inspectors right now.
You have 33,
Yeah,
okay.
all of our pins are full across the board.
Totally full, okay. And then some of them were also plan reviewers? Are any of the current ones also plan reviewers?
So there are, and I don't know, either Captain Dawson or Chief White can speak to that. There are individuals within that office that can do both.
Is that their title as planned reviewer, or they're just filling in because we need capacity?
Thank you for that question. So they are embedded within those 33 inspectors. They are classified as inspectors. They're not titled as plans reviewers. They are trained to be able to do that work.
So you utilize them when you need to in terms of capacity, okay. Yeah. So then how many plans reviewers do you have?
So currently we'll have 4 plans reviewers in addition to the 4 people that we have, sworn members that we have dedicated to that work.
So you have sworn, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to get this clear. You have 4 sworn right now because it doesn't say that in here. Sworn plan reviewers, and you're getting 4 civilians.
Correct.
Okay. To be plans reviewers, engineers who know the fire stuff, basically, right? Yeah. Okay, so that'll increase your capacity as well. And that's what the 500,000 is for that I see in the budget?
The 500,000 will, again, we have a couple of pathways with it. I believe where I'm going to go is the 500,000 will create 2 new fire inspector positions. So instead of 33, it'll take us to 35.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's where I was.
And then once
okay.
that runs through the pipeline, the promotions will be made.
Gotcha, okay. But you're gonna move some of your sworn, you're gonna keep your sworn as plan reviewers? Like you're not moving them around?
I
like the police
don't-
sometimes moves their sworn around?
I think the advantage that we have right now is we've got the versatility to move them. So I'm really not committed to whether I'm going to continue to use them in one way or the other. I think that what we're doing now is working. It's helping to fill the gap. I think my plan is for that to help make the transition. And then once the transition is made, if need be, we can put them back over as inspectors or supervisors, as
Sure.
Chief Hamlin ends up seeing fit.
Gotcha, okay. Okay, so you've already increased your capacity pretty significantly since the last time we talked, which is great. And also, have made, I want to just thank you for taking our feedback to say, like, fix this, and you went and worked to fix it. So I appreciate that, and the website that just came out today, I think initially I was like, how does this work with Acela? But if you actually go in there, it doesn't take the place of Acela. It just says, here's what you can expect. So click here to go to Acela to start your application process. But I like the fact that it can show exactly what people can expect and what exactly, just to have that heads up in terms of managing expectations. Is that kind of what you were going for in that regard?
It is, and I want to do 2 things. One, acknowledge my comms director who's in here, John Marsh. He really worked hard with the fire marshal's office to not only build this but make it purposeful. But those specific questions I'd like to ask him to answer for you because he can definitely be precise.
I'm John Marsh, the Director of Communications and PIO. Could you repeat the question again?
I was just commenting on the website
yes.
for the plans review, where it looked like it was just not replacing Acela, but gives you exact instructions about, what you can expect and what the review is, and then people would go into Acela to do their initial application.
Yeah, this was our first phase of a soft launch of a website that kind of helps with the communication flow so that, like you said, contractors can have an expectation and also a way of communicating with us. We have a new contact us form so that they can actually ask us direct questions and that we can streamline the communications through this. So this website, in my mind, will grow. It won't replace anything, but it can help with communication flows, and it can help with our customers so that they can get the information that they need. So our frequently asked questions will grow as we see that the questions will be variant. So it was our first step forward, is the way.
And you worked with some contractors that to kind of go through the testing of this to see that this is actually going to be what you
Yes,
need?
so we've tested it before it launched with a focus group of contractors, and we've received great feedback on literally what we use their feedback and our feedback with our Office of Fire Marshal to then put together this website.
Great. Well, I'm sure we'll all have additional content and also questions and feedback as
Of
well.
course.
But I appreciate you doing it because it helps to manage communications and expectations. Yeah. And so the next step is really about how you get the word out. So I saw it on socials today. I'm sure all of us will share it on socials as well. Are you going to do direct communication with the people who are actually your customers now, the contractors, things
The
like
next
that?
plan is to actually network with the local contractors, with residential and commercial, to work with them in their networking events to get the word out on and then get feedback from them. So phase 2 is for us to actually work with them at the upcoming network events that they go to, and we'll have a presence there also to not only get feedback on how we're servicing them as customers, but also how we can expand what we're doing and then get the word out that this site exists. So that's going to be more of a networking than rather rely on social all the time.
Yeah, I think that's the right way to go. And there's obviously the Small Development Collective and some of the other developers that DHCD works with. And then there's also the small business community and the main
ULI,
streets and
groups
all
like
of that.
yeah.
So great. Yeah, well, and utilize us for that as well. I appreciate it. I wanted to ask again about the third-party piece as well. So it looked like on the website that there's only 3 categories. And then so if I understand correctly, the contractor would hire somebody to look at them and say, yep, this is fine, but the fire marshal still has to take one last look. Is that correct?
Correct. There's I'll call them fail-safes. There's 2 in there. One, they're requiring a certain level of person actually do the third-party review, right? They can't contract you and I to do it.
No, for
There has
sure.
to be a certain threshold of education and certification. And then, yes, it comes back, the fire marshal's office, Chief Eames and his team, or Captain Dawson, whoever, they'll actually review it for legitimacy, then sign off.
But I don't want it to be like a third step, right? So there's the initial plans review that the department already does. And then, so the third party, I have my questions about it. I'm not sure that this is the right way to go. That's why I'm asking these questions. The third party was meant to have efficiency, but if then you still have to do the last sign off, to what extent are the plans reviewers already certified through you? How do we know that this third party person knows what they're doing? Because you're right, they shouldn't contract with me because I don't even know what I'm doing. So how does that work?
Councilwoman, thank you for your question. So what you see in that form is in there, they're required to put in their FPE number as well as any other certification number. So that number then lets us know that person is a qualified, certified person to review plans. And so that's why we started with those 3 small topics where we can allow someone to submit their plan to their contractor, their third-party contractor. Contractor reviews that plan, looks at it for sufficiency for life safety, then they can bring that to us. We can then sign them off to begin the work. So they can then go ahead and conduct the work. The final sign off for us is a walkthrough. So we're going to take, you're going to have a checklist that says that you have your plans, everything signed off, you have your site plan, everyone's on scene. So when we come for that last final walkthrough, everything should be as you've already indicated it. So that's how we streamline that process. So we can turn that turnaround time so that they can begin to work. And the last phase for us will just be the walkthrough of the site.
But the walkthrough is not the inspection, right? The walkthrough is to just make sure they know what they're doing and it's not a formal sort of fail, pass, fail.
I'll defer to Captain Dawson. He's more familiar with that, but the walkthrough, from my understanding, is that is the final step.
That is the inspection.
We approve you to do the walkthrough, to start the work. Your contractor does the work to the specifications that you certify.
Got it, okay. If you want to expand on that, go ahead.
To clarify for you, it's an expedited process by having a NICET level 4 or fire protection engineer doing a quality assurance check. They're looking at it and saying, hey, I've checked it, everything's good here, marks it off. It gets put into the Acela system under a specific subtitle, and then the captain of plans review will assign it to a reviewer. We have a civilian reviewer who's handling those. Back in the old days, we call them over-the-counter permits. So it will expedite. It's taking a bulk of minor plans and being able to push it through quicker instead of if I'm reviewing a 25-story building that's taking 3 days and you give me 1 or 2 permits that only have 4 sprinkler heads, it could be done in 15 minutes. I'm concentrating on the big things and kind of forgetting about the little. They'll be streamlined to go through. As soon as we turn around and see it, it's got the information is marked, turnaround time be quick, gets cleared in Acela. It has to go through Acela because it has to get a building permit issued, and that is the tracking, and that is the permanent record. And then as soon as that's issued, they jump forward and they can request their inspection, which is the walkthrough, and we'll walk and verify that their plans are exactly what they submitted, that they did what they're supposed to, and they should be done. So probably turnaround time on most of these, we could be turning around and seeing potentially, it all depends, everybody has to adjust to the new system.
Yeah.
Potentially, we could see that they get the plans in, they're out within 7 to 10 business days or sooner, as long as they follow the directions. They complete all their Acela fees, they turn it loose, we get it, and then they contact us and we'll get them within the inspection room.
So this has 2 goals. One is the efficiency part, but also taking some of the minor stuff out of the caseload, if you will, for lack of a better word, of the fire marshal's office that has to look at much more intricate plans. And so the minor stuff is taken care of. It's not minor, it's major, but you know what I mean, like less degree, I guess. And that's taken care of. You feel confident that the certified person knows what they're doing. You go through the process. Whereas here, sometimes you have to do 2 and 3 reviews for much more complicated things, and that so it lowers the caseload. Okay, thanks. Thank you very much for going through that. Thank you, Madam Chair, for allowing me the time.
Councilman Blanchard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Really interesting set of questions here, but I'm still kind of stuck on the council president's, the conversation about the great success that the department's had in recruiting on the suppression side. And specifically, Chief, did you say that you successfully recruited 2 people through the drive-through window at a McDonald's?
I successfully was able to sign 2 people up that have committed to taking the test. It's, if we take these QR codes and move around, you'd be amazed at how many people are just waiting for someone to approach them with an opportunity. We've got, we can't, Councilman, before you were here, and many have heard me say this, we cannot stand behind the counter. We can't stand behind the table. If we get out on the street and get in the neighborhoods, people are looking for jobs. And sometimes all they need is for someone to say, click this, you could be part of us. So yes, I did.
That's awesome.
It works.
Yeah, okay.
It works.
Man, I'm fired up about that. Okay, going on, my colleague from the 5th District was hitting on wait times and the impact of the hospital wait times on our overtime and everything. And so I kind of try to do a bit of, back of the napkin calculations here. The budget says we have about 90,000 trips to the hospital each year that EMS conducts. It's roughly four members in the crew, or how many?
So our AMBOs or our medic units are two.
Two, okay. So it's two, so it's two members in the ambulance, average about 45-minute wait times, about 90,000 of these a year, about $58 an hour. So it's going to be somewhere around, it's like $8 million a year that the city is paying in overtime because of how long the wait times are at the hospitals. Does that sound about right?
No, so staffing overtime is directly correlated to vacancies. I think when there's a staffing factor, and there's also a capacity factor. So where these hospital wait times affect us are in capacity, that capacity theater, if you will. We're able to staff our units. We very, very infrequently, I'm not going to say it doesn't happen, but I'll classify it as infrequently, have to put a unit out of service because we don't have enough people working overtime, we can't staff it. But that is extraordinarily infrequent. Where wait times affect us is in our capacity, because we get bottled up at a location, and then the calls begin to backlog and they start to stack up. So that's why we've taken, we initiated the tele 911 system, right? If I can hand an iPad to somebody and they get resolution with a prescription, some hard medical equipment or something like that, that's a very favorable outcome on an incident scene. It shortens our downtime,
right,
and it gives our residents access to local healthcare options without having to go to the hospital. Once we have the nurse call diversion and the 911 up, I expect to see that make a difference as well. What that's going to do is someone calls 911, it's a low acuity call, it's transferred to a nurse. The nurse attempts to provide some type of a resolution, again, back into the community. It could be a patient first, it could be a Walgreens, that was provided there. But to combat it and to try to keep services moving around, that's why we're running this ALS chase car pilot, which is extraordinarily successful for us. This takes paramedics away from an environment where they may get caught up in that backwash and they have to wait.
Right.
And we move them, we float them around the city, and they work on the highest acuity level patients. The other thing that happens is the higher the acuity level of the patient, once they get to the emergency room, the less the wait time, because the hospital's going to take those higher acuity calls back. So I'm very passionate about this chase car program, as are a lot of people. This absolutely works. And it not only does so with regard to patient care and treatment, it gives favorable outcomes to our residents, but it helps our paramedics out. It takes them out of that low acuity call arena, and it brings down that call load, that call volume that we've talked about per person. It brings that down significantly because you're deploying a specific specialty resource to the absolute most appropriate patient.
And to just make sure I'm understanding, to tie that back, so when you're talking about, you're saying that the hospital wait times affect it doesn't drive up the need for overtime, it undercuts capacity, meaning that it's driving up or it's slowing down the response times, is how the impact that we're seeing from that?
It is primarily. Now, the one point I do want to clarify, at shift change in the afternoons, we do have people hung up at a hospital or on the street. And yes, there is overtime.
Sure.
If they go beyond their 5 o'clock off time and they end up hung up on an incident or some part of an incident for a couple of hours, then yes, that overtime is going to begin to accrue. And we do actually see a problem with that on a day-to-day basis, we get that. We're a very, very, very high call volume, high demand city. And, you know, these are some of the outcomes that we see from that.
Okay, so it has an impact, but it's specifically at the end of the shift. It has the impact on overtime at the end of the shift. And that kind of ties in really nice to my second question about shift constants, just in general. I think you had mentioned earlier, 242 officers on the suppression side and 65 on the EMS side daily. So how do those numbers get determined?
So those are what we call seated positions or riding positions. That's our minimum staffing. So with X amount of engines and trucks, I need X amount of firefighters, battalion chiefs, you know, our specialty units. Same thing with our medics and AMBOs and our EMS officers. The force that we put out requires X amount of people to actually staff it. So those are the variables. And then of course the sum total is 307.
Okay, so we have the engines, or the number of engines is based on, I guess what determines that, how do we decide how many engines we need?
So it's the apparatus that we exist in. We don't put reserve apparatus in service, right? We've got frontline apparatus assigned to districts the same way medics are. But that's our workforce. That's what we put out there. That's what we staff. That's what just like any other agency, they have X amount of apparatus.
Mm-hmm.
We have X amount of apparatus, and we need that particular level of staffing to provide that level of service.
So maybe I can phrase this a little more clearly. So we have, let's say, like on the suppression side, we need 242 firefighters to staff the engines that we have. How do we determine, how does the fire department determine how many engines we need to effectively provide the service that the city needs?
John Hyde, I'm the Assistant Chief of Operations. Thanks for the question. Right now, our complement in the field of operations specifically, we have 4 deputy shift commanders, 24 battalion chiefs, 32 engine companies is where you're coming from, and 17 truck companies, 3 rescue squads, and a heavy rescue. And a lot of our data is based off of 1710 NFPA standard, and we look at our response times, and that data provides us where we need to strategically plan where firehouses are and our response profiles. So they determine how many we need by the response and minimum staffing to get to a structure fire in a certain amount of time. And we have all those metrics. And like we've said at the quarterly hearings, a lot of that's tied into an ISO 1 rating where we take all those metrics and we look at our on-scene times. And the first arriving unit is about a 4-minute time frame that they look at to see that you have that first unit on the scene of a structure fire. And we know that we're about a minute underneath of that. So they look at all those numbers and they take that all into consideration. And ISO 1 rating, which we've had for quite some time, we know lowers the homeowner's insurance. So it's based off a standard of NFPA 1710, which has, if you look at it, has a lot of different metrics for the fire department.
Got it. So it's to hit a certain response time for the predicted fires throughout the city and everything. Here's how we need to be laid out and everything, and to do that, we need this many engines, and to man those engines, we need this many firefighters or this many ambulances or whatever.
Right.
Is how
yeah.
Okay.
And we we right now, we're a highly taxed, you know, system, and they're doing quite a great job of what we what we have to manage. And we do that every day by moving people around, training. Our shift commanders are moving engines strategically by a mapping system to make sure we have all that coverage, you know, when we have training gaps and stuff like that, to make sure we have the coverage to meet these standards.
Awesome. Okay, that is super helpful and totally clarifies that question for me. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Where am I? Chief, first I want to say thank you for working with, you know, myself and the council president and the city administrator on making sure we get that pay issue kind of addressed and making sure that the men and women of your department is, you know, paid well on time. I hear it's an issue that dragged on for a while, but when we got together and you heard about it, we found a resolution quick and you did what you said you was going to do. So just want to commend your partnership and the city's partnership and helping make that happen. And also just say and thank you for your participation in the district walk, you know, and having your men and women come out knocking on doors. They've been in the district multiple times and I've knocked with them. Not only just offering, you know, smoke detectors, making sure, you know, families have an escape plan, but also monitoring, you know, the vacant houses and the houses and figuring out what's vacant, what's not, and marking it in the system and the loopholes when people aren't pulling the right permits. And I've learned a lot walking with you folks, so and help me understand the process. So thank you for all the work you do in that regard. But to my question, my first question is, this kind of be my baseline question around these vacancies. There's been a lot of conversation around vacancies. Earlier, you mentioned that due to the nature of, you know, staffing, there'll practically always be some level of vacancy. But with the current level of vacancy, do you feel the department is able to maintain the base level of service our citizens need?
So I would say, generally speaking, yes. I think we get better month over month. Right now, with the amount of EMT firefighter cadets we have in the fire department, fire suppression for us, not EMS, but just fire suppression only, we're overstaffed.
Okay.
And we've done a couple things strategically. Back to vacancies, we have a lot of different job codes, if you will. We have firefighter, paramedic, EMT firefighter. But what we noticed is we're only hiring EMT firefighters. So those classifications of firefighter, paramedic, the likelihood of those being filled is almost zero. So what HR has done is they've started to reclassify all those positions to EMT firefighters to absorb that overage. With the balance, I believe, of the overage, will be absorbed likely in midsummer through attrition. We do know we have retirements coming up. We do know oftentimes people retire right at the end of a fiscal year. We have indications that we do have some retirements coming up. So we're going to be at a bare minimum, we're going to be full there very soon. We have a class, there's 84 of them out there now. I think we have a class graduating June 9th. We've got about 18 of that 84 that are coming out. With regard to EMS, we have some changes that we're going to make to EMS. We're still working through some numbers right now, so I don't want to make a commitment to that. Although that's been a challenge, that has also seen favorable upticks with regard to interest in the Baltimore City Fire Department and EMTs. That's going to take longer to stabilize. That particular piece requires us to move some people from fire suppression over to staff ambos, and you do see that need for backfill there. We've, you know, on a line graph, you can just see that huge uptick for us in intake of new personnel this year. So I think there are still concerns there, and there are still challenges, but we are not where we were this time last year. We're much better staffed. We're moving in a much better direction. We have a much more solid plan. And, you know, quite honestly, I've hired a lot of new professional staff, just to be candid about this, with the intent of finding the people to help get that business process moving, that recruitment and retention, and they're doing their jobs.
But in regards of ensuring that the city's able to operate and people are able to get the help that they need in the midst of an emergency, do you feel like we're able to?
I do. Yeah, generally speaking, our apparatus is in service. Again, if we have shortages, if we don't have enough people to sign up to fill the vacancies, then yes, you may see a temporary closure of a piece of apparatus because we don't have the staffing for it. Yeah. But overall, these men and women show up every day, and they're, as many of you have seen, they're putting the time in. When they're out there, they're working hard to provide that service.
Got you. And I guess the follow-up part of that is until, we're able to reach a level in which those vacancies are filled, do you feel confident that the men and women will continue to show up and be there for the city and
continue to show up to work?
Yeah, show up and make sure we're at the base level of service in which, the city needs in order to operate.
I do. Where we're doing the supplement right now with overtime, as we get more people in the field, that need will come down a little bit. So you'll see an imbalance of a scale, overtime, regular time people. We're already beginning to see that equalize.
Gotcha. Cool. Thank you.
Yes,
and
sir.
I guess my second question is in regards to permitting. I guess which is, where would you say is the greatest bottleneck in the permitting process? Would you say it's in the document/review signed off or the walkthrough? Because I heard there was two different kind of processes.
I'm actually gonna defer part of that to my staff. The one observation that I've had over the past year is just clarity in communications. And that's why that our comms director took the initiative to try to get this website up and going so that we could just do better at not only hearing from our customers, your constituents, but we just had better view of exactly what was going on and what the problems were. So I'm going to answer that partly and say that I think some of it was just a communications factor, and I think we've gotten there. But as far as getting hung up, I don't know if it's Chief White or Captain Dawson that are a little bit closer to the process can give you a more accurate answer.
Yeah, Councilman, thank you for that question. So from my high-level view of what's going on with the permitting process, I would echo what the chief said. It does begin with the communication piece and having that good, clean communication with our contractors and our citizens on what the process is will help streamline that process, as well as boots on the ground, right? Any capacity we need dictates that we have people to do that work. So as we expand our capacity, we should start to see some streamlining of that process and some ways forward with that being much more streamlined. But Captain Dawson, he does it on a day-to-day basis, so he can speak real time as to what he's seeing with the permitting process. I'll let him speak to what he sees from his view.
Thank you, Councilperson Dennis Dawson, Captain OFM. What we saw is we did assessments over the past year with Fire Commander Eames, myself. We took participation in permit stat. With the development of the Acela, we saw an opportunity to educate and help better inform the contractors' constituents of the processes, because we heard the issues, we heard the grumblings. We were limited with our staffing. The chief and the command staff is working to improve the staffing and to get us to what we need. Time is money for these plans. So by coming up with a website, and Councilperson Odette, I see you shaking your head, you know exactly, we've talked quite a bit about this. Getting the information out here. These contractors, they turn around, they sign up to do a job, and they're supposed to have a requisite knowledge. So we're gonna put all of it right there, that way they have clear expectations, because a lot of times you hear, I don't do this in Baltimore County, I don't do this in Anne Arundel County. The jurisdiction of Baltimore City is a different code enforcement area. We have different codes compared to the rest of the state. Only on a few do we use the state codes. And that throws a monkey wrench into what people are used to. We also see a lot of contractors coming from outside of Baltimore City, from DC, Virginia, Ohio, even California. And they're building these projects and they're doing it off what they think is, and they just didn't see a clear-cut way. For the council person, we talked about the evacuation drills. That was actually put in and codified under the building and fire-related codes of Baltimore City. And that's a nuance that a lot of people don't see. So by getting the website and doing frequently asked questions, how to get your contract, what permits are expected, how to reach out to us and open the communication forums, we think we're going to meet everybody's needs in a just time.
Okay, thank you. And just the reason for my question is, you know, the whole purpose of like a third-party review is kind of to speed things up. My concern was that if the bottleneck is at the end where people do the walkthrough, then you'll get an influx of, you know, documents that are stamped off, ready to go, but you don't have the manpower to go out and do the physical walkthrough, and then it kind of doesn't necessarily serve its purpose.
So to address that point, the plans reviewers, myself, Captain Wilson, Inspector Baca, Inspector Diosis, and Fire Commander Eames, we're not only the same people reviewing the drawings, we're the same people doing the testing. And the shunt that is currently used, when we turn around and fully get Acela expanded and out there, it will change the algorithms. But the customers call 311. We give them almost a 2-page letter that walks you step by step by step of how to call and request. A lot of times when they say they didn't get a call or they didn't get this, we can show that they didn't follow the process. When you call 311, you are going to be contacted within 7 business days to be set up for your inspection. Now, with the limited hours and the size of buildings, with the speed lane for the third-party reviews, that'll be picked up by a junior inspector, because in a 10-hour day, they can route their day, and we can probably get them within 7 business days or less and adjust as we go. For the larger projects, I can tell you right now, I have a 5-story apartment building that I will be going to tomorrow, conducting an inspection. It's going to take 3 hours. That's for a full walkthrough of sprinklers, fire alarms. There is no agency in the state of Maryland that I know that can conduct that walk in that time frame. It's just what we've put into our system, and we work with our contractors and communicate so everything's smooth. Have your doors propped open, pre-test, do this, and we bang it out. We will improve, we will continue to reassess, and then we will also adjust metrics as needed. But I don't foresee that being an issue right now for the quick track permits.
Yep. The only thing I wanted to add about the third-party reviews is that this is a pilot, right? And so what we're gonna do as a part of our overall commitment to reforming the permitting system is ensuring that we're assessing and evaluating the third-party reviews to see if there are opportunities for us to make adjustments to the process and to ensure that the third-party reviews are doing what we set out to do. The other thing that I'll say about third-party reviews, prior to implementing the pilot that we just launched, we did look at other jurisdictions. We're not the first to do third-party reviews. A lot of people do third-party reviews. Baltimore County, I can't remember if Howard County does, DC, everywhere. I mean, we're kind of behind in doing third-party reviews. My point there is that there are lessons learned from other jurisdictions that have implemented this, and so we will be coming back and iterating and improving the process.
Thank you.
President Cohen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Really appreciate the move toward third-party reviews, not normally a thing that I'm an advocate, which is something that takes work outside of our workforce, but in this case, I think important. And to the city administrator's point, I know DC, Prince George's, a bunch of jurisdictions around here are doing it. I did want to ask, Chief, at the end of this year, are you going to come back for additional supplemental budgets? Let me rephrase that question. Is the budget the request that is in this current budget sufficient to cover all of this fiscal year? Or do you believe that you will be returning to the council for a supplemental?
I believe there's a likelihood there's going to be a return. I don't know exactly what that looks like yet, but I want to at least leave that possibility open.
Thank Thank you. And I see Bob is leaning in, but I wanted to offer some additional context and then to actually turn it over to Bob. So the administration has been very intentional about working with the fire department to right-size their budget. And as a part of our 10-year financial plan efforts, we specifically call out the fire department and some operational changes that we're recommending that would bring the department further in line with their budget. Also, we've already seen the chief this year implement some reforms in the 26 budget with the addition of the opioid restitution dollars will be a part of bringing the department in line. We do believe, and Bob, you can speak to the details of this, we do believe that it will take a couple of fiscal years. It won't be done in 1 year. It might be 2, at max 3 years to implement the reforms that would bring the department back into budget. Bob, in his tenure with the city, actually helped BPD do some of this work several years ago to right size and bring them in line. But Bob, I'll toss it over to you so you can talk a little bit more about the work you're doing there.
Yeah, sure. So I think there's a couple things that make me think will be improved next year. One is, as the chief said, we're up to, he's not up to full staffing, but the staffing is dramatically improved from where it was earlier in fiscal 25. So, we'll be running at a higher overall level, hopefully, of staffing in 26 compared to where we are in 25. The second reminder is in the current fiscal year, one of the things that's driving the deficit is that we ended up with a labor contract that was a little bit higher than what we had budgeted for. So that's impacting us in 25 as well. The third thing is that, remember, the contract units currently have been charged to the general fund. So the way that started during COVID. And we started using those, additional units. It started out that we actually used federal funding for that. And, because of the impact and the pressure on the EMS system, we had to keep those units. And it wasn't until this year that we're able to have a dedicated funding source with that through the opioid restitution fund. So the combination, I think, of having higher overall levels of staffing, not full staffing level, but a higher level consistently in 26, that kind of one-time impact of the contract last year that was higher than planned, and then the fact that we can move some of these recurring costs, especially on the private units, over to the opioid restitution fund, it makes me think that we'll be closer in fiscal 26. But as the CA said, I still think this is a multi-year process. And one other thing we should mention is, we've identified sick leave as a potential problem. We are an outlier. When we did our benchmarking for the 10-year plan, we identified that our sick leave policies are more generous than some of our neighbors, some of our peer jurisdictions. That's something that we're working with the unions as part of labor negotiations. So we can't say specifically what's been proposed, but that's something that's on all of our minds as a way that we could kind of reduce overtime costs as well. But again, that's like a multi-year approach. So I think we'll get better. I think we'll be closer in fiscal 26, but I think it will take probably a couple years to get us back into balance.
Bob, I appreciate that. I am going to continue to express deep frustration that this council is being asked to negotiate and then approve a budget with full knowledge that departments will be able to overspend their budget, and this council will be then asked retroactively to to approve supplementals. It deeply undermines any real integrity within our budgeting process and makes it extremely difficult to engage in good faith in these conversations. I'm gonna leave that and shift gears. Chief, there's been an enormous amount of loss within your department. The Vice President spoke earlier about the physical toll that being a member of the Baltimore City Fire Department takes. I want to talk about the mental health toll. And I want to shout out, you've got strong union leadership in President Koster, who I see back there, as well as President Fannin, in advocating for the women and men of this department. But one of the things that I have noticed is that I think there's a lot of frustration, anxiety, sometimes depression. There are some real hard things that members experience when they go out on a call, when they go back home, to have your prefrontal cortex, your amygdala just be lit up in that kind of way, and then have to stop, and then you may get another call and go right back out. Witnessing death, witnessing people hurt and burned, it takes a tremendous toll on folks' mental health. And something you and I have talked about, but what are we doing to support not just the physical health of folks within this department, but the mental health as well?
So you're absolutely right, Council President, and thank you for the question. So we've been able over the past couple of years to actually layer this, build this in structure. I'll start off with the fact that most recently we began the training, and the entire council is aware of the trauma-informed care. Fire department just started that. We're working through service delivery. Chief Shiloh is able to host it. We have space out there. We can't deploy that training the way that other agencies have been, because in a 50-person cohort, with where we're at right now, that's very hard to manage. So what we do is we're sending crews out during what we call 2-in-1 training, 2 engines in a truck. So we're grabbing 12 at a time, and we're getting them through. I just saw the first data kind of feedback from the university on that, and it's pretty favorable, so that's one thing. But what we're doing internally as a department, again, 3 layers. It begins with the fact that we just rebuilt our chaplaincy corps. I've expanded that just way bigger than what it was when I got there. The chaplain corps is representative of the diversity of the fire department. So from a Catholic priest, a deacon, a rabbi, we have a very strong core of people there to provide for our personnel. But what we have this year that we've been limited in historically, and in some cases haven't had in the past, is I have 5 female chaplains now involved. They also represent the LGBTQ community. So when I looked at the fire department as a whole, and then looked in, where do we need to provide that representation? We built this the way we did. Those chaplains are given the ability to go to any firehouse at any time. They're called out on critical incidents. They can show up on critical incidents. They have PPE. They're clearly identified. They have fire department IDs. They are available to our members at any time. We encourage them to show up in the morning and have coffee, show up for dinner. But what we've done is we've posted that data in every firehouse. If there's a need for them, call them and they'll be there for you. The next layer is our peer support team. That is our internal group that has specialty training. They're a peer support group that come out on all of our critical incidents. So the recent line of duty incidents that we had 2 weeks ago, they were there. And they're amazing. They have the ability to interdict right away to a certain level. They have the service dogs. They bring it. If they need help, we've got good agreements with other ally partners. They can come as well. And then finally, we've got the critical incident stress management team. That's going to be that higher level. And then if we get to a point where we've not been able to mitigate those types of situations, we have the ability to refer our personnel over to PSI for advanced help. So multiple layers there, but I think most importantly, multiple layers that want to be involved. And our peer support people will vouch for this. Over the past couple of years, the one shift we've seen in culture is the fact that our members will go to them. They don't have to go looking and try to evaluate a crowd of people and say, well, so-and-so is struggling. We actually have seen a shift in culture where our personnel will actually ask for help.
I appreciate that. I know that having 2 members within the same week pass away tragically will elevate an already extremely stressed out workforce. And so I appreciate all the interventions you've made, the trauma-informed care, the peers, the chaplains, the the entire body of work. I know it's extremely important to you as it is to me. I will just ask that you continue to lean in and check in on your members because it's tough stuff and a lot that they go through.
Yeah, I'll just add, and this is really a credit to the department. This is an example of the resiliency of the Baltimore City Fire Department. We had Lieutenant Dranbauer's incident on a Monday, and Monday night, those very same firefighters, paramedics, fireground supervisors were on that 7-alarm fire Monday night. And they stood tall, and they absolutely stopped the fire from getting into that Bentalo neighborhood. But on Friday, when we had EVD Mudra, we saw that same level of, and I'm just gonna call it what I believe it is, that same level of heroism to try to save a life. And later that night, that same side of town, those same people were working an EF1 tornado in Southeast Baltimore. And they did so, they did not miss a beat. I was on both of those incidents. And as was our mayor, we had a lot of support there. But the resiliency of this department, their ability to bounce back, get up, go out that night, I think personally is a testament not only to them and their character, but also the support services that not only we provide, but during times of need, they're willing to ask for.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Can I just a very quick point of personal privilege here? One, I want to actually take a second to thank you, Mr. Council President, and your foresight and vision around trauma-informed care. Since I have been in this role as city administrator, between losing employees in DPW and attending multiple funerals of firefighters, that has been the hardest part of this job, is the amount of loss that we experience of city employees. And when I talk to other administrators and I tell them about the loss that we experience as a city, they don't have this type of loss in 4, 5, or 6 years. And this is the type of loss that we're experiencing every single year. I think about the Stricker Street fire, and we started out there, and there's just been such significant loss of our own. And this point about us needing to take care of our workforce is spot on. And your vision and foresight around trauma-informed care and having our agencies trained on that, I think it was brilliant, really. And we've been able to do that. Not only are we experiencing our own loss within our own ranks, but I think about Rec and Parks, where they've had people die, and our own employees are having to respond when someone, passes away right outside or inside of a rec center, and the trauma that our own employees deal with and navigate as they are trying to do the good work. But at least now we have an additional tool that we can deploy to support our employees. So I just wanted to take a moment to just thank you for that. And then, of course, while I have the floor, to thank Chief Wallace and thank this entire department, but Chief Wallace and his leadership in this last week was very, very tough for the chief. But the type of leader that he is, he shows up, and he shows up in a way that encourages us all. And so I just want to take a second and thank you, Chief.
Councilman Gray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had the pleasure of doing the tour, as I stated earlier, of the 911 call center, and was incredibly impressed by the team and the operation there. And I know technology moves at the speed of light for us every day, but especially for the city. On that note, can you tell us about the current needs for the 911 center, Director Reddick, technology-wise? What would make your job easier? What would give you guys the cutting edge, leading edge to be the best that you can be and better than what you are? And then as a follow-up, CAO, if you could provide any update on any any investments that we're doing for our 911 call center.
Thank you. My name is Tania Reddick. I am the 911 director for the city of Baltimore, along with the director for fire communication. And thank you for that question, along with the visits, and you always advocating for 911 and the people in the seat and behind the headsets, because that is a hard job that we do and a thankless job. A lot of people forget about us. And the work that we do continuously. So as far as 911 and the systems that we have, one thing I can honestly say is we're leading the force in technology when it comes down to not only in the state of Maryland, but also within the nation. As far as the innovation that we do from time to time, Chief Wallace spoke about the geofencing that we've done with the Artscape, and I can go a little bit more in depth with that. That allowed us, the technology that we had and what we purchased last year, allowed us to literally geofence all 7 zones of Artscape. And when I say geofence it, meaning that all 7 zones of Artscape was placed in a map, and not only was it placed on a map, but the call takers that was on that footprint was only embedded to certain call takers to take that call. So during the Artscape, we had our remote stations up located in the EOC, and so those call takers were only taking calls for that Artscape only, while the rest of the call takers in the city, in the call center, was taking calls for the rest of the city. So that allowed us to get information in a little bit more efficiently and effectively, just in case it was something that was going to stop the operations. But because of the event, we really didn't have any, a lot of call volume based off of just only a couple medic calls, but that was it. And medics was on the scene very quickly to assess those people. So that's one of the ways that we are being innovating in the call center. Also, as far as the 911 call, the 911 phone system. The phone system is fully operational and it continues to receive emergency calls without any issues, which is a good thing. Like I said, we transferred over to that system last year, updating the 911 call system in itself. That was all the technology that was in February of 2024, later coming around in June of 2024, updating our phone lines of way the phone comes in now is in the cloud, the IP, so we're more accessible to have location accuracy with that's part of the next gen 911 piece that a lot of people in the country is moving towards. So like I said, 911 in Baltimore City is the driving force for technology. Also, we have been doing AI. We have been using a lot of different AI technology with our with our phone transcription and translation services, along with adding bots to help us deviate some of the non-emergency calls that we may be receiving during high call volume. So that's why I said we are driving the force in Baltimore City when it comes down to our public safety, because we really understand the need for it, for the citizens as well as the visitors that come into the city to tour Baltimore City. So we just always try to make sure that we are available and the lines are open and readily available for them to call 911 without any minor hiccups. But then also, as always, Councilwoman Ramos always say, when it comes down to our non-English speaking callers, we have also actually had another gateway in, like I said, with the language translation services, including the AI feature, along with having I'm getting ready to start streamlining the video contacts in for ASL callers as well as those non-English speaker in there. So we're always looking for ways to bridge that gap for communications where we will not miss a call and everybody feel comfortable and safe with using the Baltimore City 911 system. So that's where I'm at with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you so much. So just two things. I'll answer the initial question, which is investments in technology. So I'm sure that you're interested in the computer-aided dispatch system. So we have actually been developing, I would say, we've been looking at how we can braid different funding sources so that we can look to upgrade and ultimately replace our computer-aided dispatch system. And so what that looks like is, where possible, seeking funding from the federal, state government, and then looking in the out years of the capital improvement plan to start to invest in upgrading that computer-aided dispatch system. Just one, I just want to acknowledge Director Reddick and her leadership. For the first time in a very long time, time, our 911 center is fully staffed, or at least close to being fully staffed. And it's in part because of the creative partnerships that she's built with the school system in particular that has helped us get there. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, because there was a time where we were not fully staffed, and that caused challenges for our residents.
Thank you for that as well, and an acknowledgement with us being, we are, as of today, we are fully staffed in 911. And this has been something that's been a long time coming. For over the couple years, I've sat in front of City Council as well as other platforms and expressed the need for 911 call takers. And yes, some of that came from the partnership with the school systems as well as the community as well, with going out there in the community, boots on the ground, recruiting. So Chief Wallace isn't the only one who's recruiting in McDonald's. I will go wherever I can be in a restaurant. I'm like, have you considered being a 911 operator? And they're like, who are you? Don't worry about it. Here's the information. I do that all the time because I know what I'm looking for when I'm actually outside dealing with people and the customer service skills and the level of customer service skill that I'm looking for. Then also we was able to actually promote some of this stuff on the socials. So it was good with getting the hits of people who we never really expected to reach when it comes down to recruitment 911. So a lot of people got feedback from social media when it came down to recruiting. So it's just always ongoing as far as recruitment strategies, but also being innovating of how, like I said, we can better make this better system in Baltimore City. So thank you once again. I appreciate everyone's support behind it.
Thank you for that comprehensive answer by the both of you. And it just goes to show, just personally, what I always believe, that if you want to get anything done in Baltimore, just hire a woman for the job, and usually it'll get done. And so my second question has to do with 311. And I know this is a BCIT. I know it's housed in BCIT. My question is why? Why? Because, you know, to be candid, when we did the tour, I believe that all of 911 has everyone. It's, you know, full. It's without any vacancies. There was a huge opening over in the 311 because they're still working from home, and just the complications, how that works sometimes.
311's back.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yep. They should have been back.
Yeah. So when you said you would get on it, I had faith that they would be back. I hate to be that person. I would love anyone to work from home, but that's kind of essential. But could you just go through why 311 isn't integrated with 911 and why and how we can fix that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to credit my predecessor for this. This was one of the things that I discussed with my predecessor prior to his transition, was establishing an Office of Unified Communications. And so, which again would just combine all of this under one entity. And so we very much are still interested in looking at that Office of Unified Communications structure to help us better streamline. So I'm absolutely open to shifting and bringing those two entities closer together.
Thank you, because I think that would be really important. It's emergency and non-emergency, but at the end of the day, folks are thinking they're calling, one house. And I just think communication-wise, system-wise, if everyone's working off of the same system, it just makes for a more seamless transfer. So, those are all my questions. Thank you.
Councilwoman Ramos.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Director Riddick, thank you for the explanation around Artscape. I think that's really cool. I mean, that's really great. And also for your innovation, to say like, look, we've got this problem, we're gonna try to fix it. And I think from our very first hearing 4.5 years ago, when I said, how many people do you have speaking Spanish? You're like, none, but it wasn't just about I'm glad you're hiring people because I think you have 2 now, but it was also about how do you put a system together? And so, the innovation around the 911 text and now with the video, I think that's just really amazing. So thanks really for doing that.
Thank you. Also, I'm just going to add, with the high school program, 2 of the high schools that I am currently working with and will be embedded in there with the partnership from them is both Patterson and Digital Harbor. And we know they do have a
Latino
high number of
population.
non-English as well as bilingual students, which will be going through the CTE program from the Law and Public Safety. So we will be also embedding those students in with the internship of coming to 911 within the 11th and 12th grade year. So we're also looking at that, how would that help with the community that we service in Baltimore that has a language barrier, and how can we get the students to help with that? So that is a big partnership, and that's why I really is pleased to have to do it with those 2 schools between Patterson and Digital Harbor.
That's amazing. That's great. Thank you. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Switching gears, Chief Wallace and team, I just want to also give a shout out for, the whole new thinking around approaching not just fires, but also vacant properties in terms of the injury reduction is pretty substantial. Not just pretty substantial, it is substantial in terms of 83%. That's pretty amazing. But with that, and I'm glad you're doing it, I'm glad it's happening, I'm, continue to be concerned about, obviously the 30% or more of our fires are actually from vacant and abandoned properties, whether they're illegally occupied or something else, comes up. And so I just want to appreciate the codex data that you provide for us, or for me, and then we get to analyze it together, because I think that's going to be helpful with understanding a little bit better about where we are, not just with adding codex properties, because we still have to add them, but also as we're taking off the diamond, because we think that is rehab. So I wonder if you can talk a little bit about your approach to make sure that, our firefighters are safe, but also just continuing to monitor your concerns related to the vacants. And I think we do talk about it in the hearings, but I think it would be interesting for folks to hear what you've been working on and what we've been working on together. Thanks. It's my favorite subject, by the way.
Yes, ma'am. Thanks for the question. As we discussed before, we fight about 40 a quarter, whether it's vacant or code X-ray fires, structure fires. We figure per quarter that's around what we have. And out of those, 30% we encounter someone in those structures. So we are looking at different ways to collaborate with the different agencies to share that information, because we know that the people inside, and how do we report that and make sure everyone is responsible for their specific duties we don't have the duty or the authority to remove them. So we would create a 311 request system for housing through the Baltimore City Fire Department QR code that we have. And we're tracking that data, and we've developed a platform, and we're sharing with all the agencies to report that. And we also are leaving door hangers for other residents to report that. We know a lot of the times the codexes and the vacants, we go out every Wednesday and we're proactively inspecting them and doing re-inspections to make sure that we're capturing that data. Right now, we're at a plateau. We have about 5,000 codexes in the system, and we're not identifying too many more because we've plateaued of identifying where we are now. So what we're looking at doing now is developing a strong policy to put them back into use. But we have to understand, as I've talked about before, is that what does that look like structurally for us? It goes from a class 3 structure to a class 5, which is lighter weight construction, and we're seeing that when we return them to use, we don't fully know the permit processes and those processes that we've talked about with you, and we're trying to circle back and make sure that we identify them in our CAD system to say, hey, these were originally a codex structure, and now it's returned to normal use, but it has that in the CAD notes for our incident commanders to know that it could be a less burn time that they can have members in there to pull them out. So we're multi-leveled, whether sharing agency information and trying to share that information or developing policy and procedures of how we fight them. And I think we talked about this, the fire EMS stat, when a mayday has been transmitted, that's usually a firefighter in imminent danger. They can't get out. And we know from our policy and procedures and the way we're fighting the vacants and the code X-rays, we went through the numbers. Were actually quite impressive. They went from pre-policy back in 2022, before we had our policy and procedures in place and identifying the code X-rays. We had 11 maydays in vacant structures and 2 in occupied structures. Post-policy, after 2023, we've had 2 maydays in vacant structures and 2 in occupied structures. And the last mayday that we transmitted was in 2023, which says a lot about our policy and procedures and our sharing of information, the raising of, with the council's support and the mayor's support of raising the code X-ray that can't be rehabbed. We're seeing a marked improvement, not only in injuries, but also in these maydays, which can be catastrophic for us. So hope that answers your question. And we really concentrate on those a lot because when they come out, we're on the phone constantly listening, knowing that those CAD notes, that we're giving the correct information and we're trying to put the right policy and procedures, but we always know that we have the possibility, 30% possibility that we're seeing of people still trapped that we need to go in and try to effect a rescue. So
yeah, no, I think that you're, because you have to save lives, bottom line, that's what you do. So I know that you have to always make those judgment calls, but having as much information as you can is important. So I'm glad that you started up the Codex system again, and the data that we're working on together is just to try to figure out, for the benefit of the committee, the whether or not we've got rehabs that are done without permits, and that could really compromise the health and safety of the resident, but also of our firefighters. So I look forward to continuing to working with you on that. I would love to come out on a Wednesday with, I was at a fire recently, and the captain happened to be at the fire, and he showed me his notebook and all the notes and all of that. So I'd be interested in, after this, following up on that, so we can, on the street, kind of figure things out as we're going. But I appreciate your work on that. That's, I think, really, really critical in terms of not only firefighter safety, but again, just makes the case that we have so much more work to do relative to improving our neighborhoods as well.
And I thank you for that. You've been a big driver for that for us, and us being on the phone when I'm up in my office and we're talking and we're going through the permit processes. We actually just started a small committee of people to reevaluate how we actually are going to put those codes into the CAD system and keep it a little bit more simpler, whether it's occupied, it's vacant, a codex, or a rehabbed codex. So it makes us look into our policy and procedures more when we get into understanding permit processes when we were looking at those different addresses. So you're helping change in our department, as knowing that the permit processes could be challenging, and for us to go and reevaluate that, not knowing those processes and trying to put something back to normal use. Thank you.
No, I appreciate you working on it, and look forward to continuing that as well. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief Wallace, and everyone for joining us this evening. We are in recess until tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.
Thank you, ma'am.